And we're live. Yeah.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm delighted and honored to host this panel at Ananke's Women in Literature Festival 2023. My name is Ekta Kapoor. I'm the founder of Ishi magazine in Delhi and the Peace Building Initiative, South Asia Union. In the past few decades, there have been many laws enacted to address gender violence and social inequalities in South Asia. Today, our discussion, which is titled My Life, My Choice, the long road from legal rights to personal agency, we're going to look at why, despite these laws, women in South Asia still don't have personal agency. We still don't have the freedom to make our own choices, whether it's related to education, marriage, having children, or career. Today, I have four very outspoken and maverick women on our panel from across the subcontinent. I'm honored to introduce them all. Our first panelist is Meher Tarar. She's a well-known Pakistani columnist, former op-ed editor and talk show host. She's authored 2 books, Do We Not Bleed and Leaves from Lahore. The second panelist is Mohua Chinappa. She's a Bangalore-based author, columnist, a TEDx speaker, and hosts a very popular podcast called The Mohua Show, which has millions of followers. Third panelist is the very brilliant Urmi Chanda from Mumbai. She's currently pursuing her PhD as a Harmony Scholar at University of Wales, Trinity St. David. Straddling the worlds of journalism, activism, and academics, Urmi has written on religion, Indian history, and mythology as an independent journalist and a researcher for non-fiction TV shows. We also have a fourth panelist, Rubab Mehdi. She's the former regional commissioner, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. She's a corporate lawyer, interfaith leader, and human rights campaigner. She was the spokesperson for the Ministry of Human Rights, Pakistan, and she had helped formulate many federal laws. So welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here today. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I'll start with Mohua. Mohua, you went from being a homemaker for many years, and then you were a communications professor. Now you're a famous podcaster in India. So did you at any point feel that your personal choices were a result of social obligations and expectations of gender roles?
Absolutely, 100%. I think all along I was, we are conditioned and we have never been able to question this conditioning, as women. So obviously when, the transfers happened for my husband, I moved along with him, and there was the cut, for my opportunity, employment opportunities. And of course, as a mother, I don't think, in the early 2000 companies, especially advertising agencies, were not that friendly with young mothers. And it was a real juggle because, managing your work, managing deadlines, managing, you also want to be financially independent, and to give that up is to give up power. And I think as a young woman, I don't think I kind of navigated or negotiated this at all, Ekta. I had no clue. I did because I was all the time guilty about not spending time with my son because my mother was a working woman. And I chose to do this differently. So I gave up work, very happily. I started going for the PTA meetings and, made friends with the mothers who were in school. But then when my son left in 2017, I had a fantastic time. We traveled all over. I was there for him, which my mother couldn't be there for me, because she was a working woman. And when in 2017 he left, for London is when I realized that the whole world had changed. But in my head, Ekta, I thought that I was still the same professional who had quit her work at a leadership position, but technology had taken over. And as a homemaker, as a housewife, stay-at-home mom, I was definitely not viewed intelligently. And that has been my biggest, space of writing and work. And whatever that I go ahead and do in the years to come is to create a voice, for homemakers, because I think they're really left in the lurch. They have no financial security. And I think it is also like when you talk about personal agency, these are the beliefs. You're supposed to look after the home. You're not supposed to. You're going to be this person who's going to be put on that altar. And then, you are actually at the beg and mercy of, your husband or your extended family who will decide whether they want to make you economically independent or not. Many women across homes are not even allowed in part of financial decisions. So yes, as a homemaker, I woke up to a very new world that was talking, Instagram, that was talking LinkedIn, that was talking all of that. But hey ho, I think I said, if you are not going to give me work, I will start writing on my own. And yes, I utilized technology to the best of my ability, and I started writing a small blog, and that's when we met, Ekta.
Yeah, that's right.
Many years back, and well, that blog took shape, and then eventually my book, which I actually wrote, in the hospital corridors, because my parents were constantly taking turns, and I was the caregiver. And yes, so the book that chronicles, it's an anthology of 15 short stories, again, of women protagonists, who've been displaced in life, women who've actually showed the imaginary middle finger to to the world that wasn't allowing them to be who they are. And yes, the podcast I started in 2020 during the pandemic, because I knew that, audio is soon going to take over, a very large part. Unfortunately, this prediction of mine turned out to be correct. And I started recording my writings. And then from there, it turned into an interview format, which I thoroughly enjoy. And my world has really opened up, because I meet amazing people every 3 times a week almost. And yes, I'm really glad to be at this space right now.
So it has been like a 360-degree turn actually in your life, going from those gender expectations and then moving on to what your personal choices are. So
Yes.
Hold that thought. I'm going to come back to you. I would now like to call Meher. Meher, let's talk about, let's look at it from the macro picture. Now we've gone from the personal, let's go to the political. From the time of Zia's Hudud ordinances till now, tell us, how far has the feminist movement come in Pakistan? Are women now more vocal in standing up for their rights? And do you see men and boys changing in their approach to women and girls in their families and in their communities?
Hi. Well, we've all been introduced to one another, so I'll just go straight to the question. You see, there was always this class in Pakistan, a class of women who were part of the feminist movement, part of the starting from the partition independence movement, partition movement. They were also in politics. They were talking about women's rights in colleges or on forums. They were always there. But I suppose they were considered the fringe. They were not really part of the mainstream ever. And even now, I have noticed that women in Pakistan, I'm using the word so-called in a positive way, women who are known to be feminists, women who are known to have very strong opinions, do not really use the word feminist for themselves, because there is so much negativity connected to the word now, because people automatically assume that if you say you're a feminist, but then you're against men, you're against the idea of, against the entire idea of patriarchy, which of course most of us are. I come from a feudal background. I come from a patriarchal background. I come from a family where women, even though women were always equals in the sense that it's not that they couldn't talk back, or they didn't have money, or they were not allowed to do things on their own, but it was understood. It has always been the culture that you will do what is expected of you. You're not supposed to go beyond certain lines. But for instance, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, he had 3 wives when he passed away. My mother was 16 at that time. But even though when you look at it from that angle, that maybe he was doing injustice to his wives, but his wives were very happy with him. And when he died, he left lands for his 3 wives, for his sons and all his and his 3 daughters. But I mean, I still laugh, that part of my Tarat family, they still survive. They're still living on my grave, my grandfather's lands. But I remember my maternal grandmother saying that, she literally worshipped him. There was no concept in her head that she would ever go against what he said. She did it, but she did it very proudly and very happily. And then my mother, after her love marriage with my father, another Tarat, but not related to one another, because as you know, Pakistanis get married to first cousins and second cousins. So love marriage lasted for 8 years. And I mean, she grew up with that mother who, and in a village, but she decided not to stay in an unhappy marriage, and the marriage ended after 4 children. So from her time to now, my my niece, she got separated. My sister's daughter, we live in the same house. She's like my own daughter. She got married and then she got separated and then she got divorced. I am not really sure if the divorce is official even now. But my sister, for a very long time, my sister is a homemaker and she's completely into log kya kahenge, dunya kya kahegi. She's very concerned about that. And no, not even wrongly, because all these labels stick. But when people create a persona of you, of which you may not be. I mean, for instance, I lived in a manner that was different from most women in my family. But anyway, so what I'm saying is she didn't want anybody to find out if her daughter, when her daughter's marriage fell apart. Women have rights. Women have always had rights. For instance, you would not believe how nice and how strong our anti-rape laws are, for instance. But on the other hand, would women be coming forward, or girls be coming forward to report their rape like they are doing in India? No, that will not happen. Here only, for instance, a huge tragedy like what happened to Noor Muqaddam 2 years ago when she was beheaded. When she was killed and beheaded by a person whom she had known all her life. In such a case, or something happened, all of you must have read about it on one of Pakistan's motorways. There was a woman whose car was single women like us. We drive all over the place. Now I don't drive, but I used to go everywhere, go to other cities on my own. Okay, with somebody, but I drove to different places, and she was driving with her children, and her car broke. I think she ran out of gas, and she was raped. She was raped by two men, and that thing became public knowledge. But otherwise, for instance, if it's a child and the child is raped and the body is thrown away, that comes to pub. But otherwise, you would. What happens, for instance, why people talk about India in that way is because cases are reported in India. It's not that India has more, for instance, the most developed countries in the world. If you look at the US, if you look at some European countries, there is a lot of violence against women because it's reported. In Pakistan, I think a great deal of bad things happen to women from, who belong to the so-called elite class or upper middle class, but they'll never talk about it. It's not that somebody else can't come forward on their behalf. They will never want anybody to know what happens to them. So laws have always been there. All kinds of laws are there, but if you think that somebody is going to be if that is going to be a social or a legal deterrent, I think that's a misconception. Of course, there is Me Too has affected people in Pakistan. Certain class of now think twice before they say anything. I know so many men who have become so careful before they say anything ridiculous. But then there are men who are still doing crazy things. So I would just say that awareness is there. Women are aware of their rights. Things like, Aurat March, and women have started to speak. Women have come forward. But as I said, they've always been there. Laws have always been there, but it's the societal attitudes.
Yeah.
People, things are still happening, but I would say that things have changed for the in a positive way.
So change is happening, but it's happening slow. And
Slow.
but there is hope that things
Yes.
will move faster. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Meher. We'll come back to you. And I'd like to now bring in the religion aspect of it. Our countries are, very big on religion. So let's bring Urmi in here at this point. As an interfaith scholar, Urmi, tell us about the role of religion when it comes to women's human rights and their personal agency. And what do our religions in South Asia say, and what is actually practiced on the ground?
Thank you, Ekta, for bringing this angle. It tends to be a very polarizing subject in our times, but the truth is that us South Asians are extremely religious people, and whether we want to acknowledge it or not, it's the truth of our lives, and how we behave and what we think and what we do. But before I answer your question, I want to clarify something. I want to clarify what it is that we mean when we say religion, because it's a vast and complex subject. And, it is looked down upon or seen in a certain way by the like Meher said, the so-called elite, upper class, educated. There's a certain derision to it. But then religion is a mix of a lot of things. Do we mean traditions? Do we mean scripture? Do we mean culture? For us, it's really a flux. It's very difficult to separate one from the other.
Right.
And because, the way religion as a concept is complicated, similarly, the messages that you get from there are equally complicated. So you get, as far as opinions about women are concerned, so religions will give you both affirmative and disparaging views, notions of, women's position in society. But say for a moment, if we narrowed it down to the scriptural aspect of it, even then, even if you narrow it down to that, you would still find discrepancies because, the original or the so-called holy books, the scriptures will have one thing, then the commentaries on it will have something else. Then the teachers who are talking about it today, contemporary practitioners will interpret it in a third way. So at every single point, because, subjectivity comes, also social conditions change. The interpretation of what is given to us in our scriptures also keeps changing. Let me take Hinduism, for example. And I'm taking Hinduism first because I'm a Hindu and I'm most familiar and most comfortable with it. See, one of the earliest texts, the Rig Veda, for example, in the 10th chapter of the Mandala, there are many hymns which seem pretty affirmative. For example, there's this verse that says, "A woman who is of gentle birth and of graceful form selects among many of her loved one as her husband. The happy and beautiful bride chooses by herself her own husband." Now, this is a very clear and wonderful example of agency, right? But if you fast forward a few centuries, you will land on certain very problematic Dharmashastra texts. The most infamous one being Manusmriti. Because it says extremely problematic things about women, such as a woman should never seek to live independently, or it is the very nature of women to corrupt men on earth, so on and so forth. But the fascinating thing is that even in the Manusmriti, you will find lines that go like, "Women must be honored and adorned," or where women are not revered, all right, rituals are fruitless. So you see, and then we also have this whole thing about, revering the woman as the mother goddess, but our social truths are very different. So what I'm trying, and similar contradictions exist in Islam. For example, the Quran offers a lot of, extremely wonderful and equal rights to women. It grants all the rights, all the safeguards that women require for living. But in many Muslim societies, it's very clear that, inequalities exist. So like Meher said, laws are there. Even within very traditional religious frameworks, there are laws that offer the provisions. But within a patriarchal society, how does it really translate? Do women have the agency to exercise those laws, to claim those? There are some women who always will stand up. There are many others who won't. So what I'm trying to say is, and this is true of all religions. So, to just reject religion entirely, saying no, it's repressive, that's I think the wrong approach. We forget the things that can be positive, can be affirmative. There are things to learn for us even today. And the lessons that we pick from there and what we choose to live by is really the end game. So yeah, I think that's where I am at with this.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, you're right. We've had these contradictions in our religious texts. On one hand, there are people who will say, well, our religion says we should respect women. And then there are other people in society who say, no, religion says women cannot speak up and women, have to follow the men.
So could I just say one thing very quickly? During the Ramzan, for the first time, I'm listening to some interpretations of the Quran by some very esteemed religious scholars. There's the Arabic, and then there's the translation, and there's tafsir. Tafsir is the explanation. So this is the first time I'm listening to two very old tafsirs, and then there are two lectures that have been that are uploaded every day. There is this Muslim scholar, Ms. Farhat Hashmi, and I think she says a lot of very sensible things. She has this Nurul Huda, I think Nurul Huda, I hope I'm not misnaming her institution, but one of the things really struck me in one of her lectures, because she said that women, it was in the context of something Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and she said, men must be respected and women must be loved. Women wants to be loved and men wants to be respected. So you must respect your men and love your women. And I was like, her audience, her live audience is just young women. Most I can hear from their voices, they're young women. And she was just saying it so categorically in 2023. I think she lives in Canada. Again, as I said, I listened to her lectures. She's explaining Quran in a way that I never even understood before. She's one of the 4 people I'm listening to. But this thing really, I said, now she's telling these young girls who obviously, most of them are in hijab, and she's telling them that it's okay for you to be disrespected as long as you're loved. So that's how, religion is strongly misinterpreted to propagate certain attitudes. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to.
No, that's a good point, actually.
That was very valuable.
Let's take that point a little further. I'm going to call Rubab now. Rubab, you're in the room? Yeah. So Rubab is from Peshawar, and she's, as I explained, she has been a commissioner. And Rubab, you've been working in the areas of workplace protection and women's property rights. And as a regulator, you had played a role in the legislation, making it obligatory for listed companies to have at least one woman on their board of directors. So tell us, how difficult was it for you to get these laws passed in Pakistan, and how far have they actually helped the women on the ground?
First of all, thank you, Ekta, for hosting this. And the first challenge that we faced was the lack of awareness about these forms. So basically, I was the commissioner for a government, for a quasi-judicial body, but people did not know that it existed. So what we did was that we conducted more than, and there is this mindset that a judge is not meant to leave their offices and all that. So, what we did was that we broke that protocol. And my view was that if people don't know about us, then we are here to serve the people. We'll go to the people and make them aware of their rights. So in the span of 6 months, there were around 150 awareness seminars held. And they were held in the province of KP, where it could have been a sensitive issue. And it was a sensitive province, and this was a sensitive issue. But there are so many languages that you can speak in, and we spoke in the language where it was in our where our intention was to do collaborative work. And, so basically we signed MOUs with different government departments to strengthen the referral systems between the departments. So we signed the MOUs with the FIA, with the police, with the other provincial ombudsman people, so that if there was something that did not come in our jurisdiction, we would still be able to help the women. So this is how we enforced it. And I think one of the challenges, apart from awareness, is that women are still being appointed because they are women. And I see that as a problem, because when we played a small part in the legislation of the listed of a woman being on the board of directors for listed companies, it was all the chachi, mami, pupis, aunts, and people who a man knew, who were getting the appointments as directors. And I remember that some of the stakeholders said that it was a breach of their fundamental rights, because it was at the end of the day their property. And then we had all these aunts and some relative of some person being on that position. So the way we got around it was that we said that they've got to be a compulsory inclusion in the data bank, which meant that there would be training and capacity building of these women. For example, there are women in Vodafone, there are women in Pepsi, there in so many other, they are working in companies, but their success goes like a pyramid. You see a lot at the bottom, but as it keeps going up, they become less and less. So what we concentrated on was the training and capacity building of the women, so that they wouldn't be on positions because they are women, but because of merit and because they deserve being there. So it was kind of creating a level playing field for the women by training them and by empowering them through skills and knowledge. So, and I think one of the problems still is that sometimes, even on some very sensitive positions, there are women who are appointed who could actually be quite anti-women. So because at the end of the day, they are being selected. And sometimes what the unfortunate things that happens is that they may be saying all the nice things, but they are hardly, if you notice that there are hardly any women around them. So the sisterhood spirit needs to be promoted, and it needs to be there. And very quickly, this is what I tried to do. And there was such an interesting discussion, Ekta. And once again, I would like to thank you for organizing this on the religious aspect also, because what we have been doing is that we've only been promoting the weeping elements of the women in our religious persuasions. So their contribution and their active role, for example, it's the month of Ramadan now. And there was Khadija, the wife of the Prophet, and Khadija, peace be upon her, proposed to the Prophet. And she proposed to the Prophet, and today we have given chai trays in the hand of women to be selected by men. Then she had a business. I mean, she ran her business, and she was known as the Princess of Arabia because of her successful business. And then how many of us know that she tried her best to put an end to infanticide and the killing of baby girls, because she would raise them with dignity and respect back in those days. So what we did was that there were a series of conferences held at the House of Lords. And I've been organizing them since the last 8 years in the British Parliament, where what we did was that we are not going to confine the interfaith circles to the imam, the vicar, and the rabbi, but there were women scholars coming from all the different religious persuasions, from the Hindu, from the Jewish, from the Christian, from the Muslim. I mean, from all the key religions in UK. It was the women coming forward, and they were giving voice. And they were giving voice and promoting the role played by the women in their religious persuasions, and also promoting the spirit of sisterhood that we should have today, and basically about giving women a voice like you are today.
Thank you. You've brought up very interesting points, and you were talking about having women on the boards of companies. We in India, we call this reservation. You keep a certain number of seats for a certain number of people. And in the US, they call it affirmative action. But yes, it's still viewed by those who have had traditional positions of power. It's viewed from their point of view as a problem or taking away of merit. So that's a very good point that you brought up. Thank you so much. And thank you also for the work that you're doing. I'd like to come back now to Mohua. Mohua, we have, we've talked about different aspects of religion and politics and, keeping seats for women. Let's come to the social aspect now. Let's talk about how in our countries, in South Asia especially, women and girls actually are married off so early in their teens, even before they know who they are or what they want out of life. And then of course we're talking about laws for women, but they don't know anything at this stage of, when they're just in their teens. But you're also exposed to a lot of younger generations through the internet. And would you say that there is some change that you're observing now in this generation that's getting exposed to the outside world? I mean, are girls becoming more conscious of their choices, and are boys starting to see that girls need to have equal rights and they deserve equal choices?
So, Ekta, you know what? I think we often ignore that, US is currently child marriage is actually legal in 43 states. And, we have not even spoken about it. Definitely in South Asia, these things are more stark. And about the US, we only know about their films and their technology and the things that they do. And we don't talk about child marriage that is legal, actually. So, I actually on my podcast had this Pakistani girl called Naila Amin. And she was married at the age of 13, and she was forced, and she was made to get married to somebody many years older to her. She fought the system, and in New York, they passed a law called the Naila Amin law. All right. In India, definitely in UP, Jharkhand, even today, as we speak, girls as young as 10 are getting married, and, they even have children. So just yesterday, I was writing an article, and, when we talk about religion, we know about, the Roman Catholic Church, where there's been a scandal that has, the whole world was shaken about it. And then also in Kerala, which has the maximum number of Christians in India, we've had, one of their priests who actually raped a girl, and she was, she delivered a baby boy that was sent immediately to a children's home. So I think, India is very divided. We have the urban and the rural areas. Definitely change is happening only in the cities, but at a very, very slow pace. I don't think what we see, we are only really skimming the surface. It is still like Meher was talking, Rubab was talking. It's a gaslight that is done, for women. Exactly what Meher said about respect and love, that we are taught that it is okay to not be respected. So I don't know how much of change really is happening. Yes, there is definitely conversations that have begun. I mean, especially also about menstrual health, which is amazing because girls are now opening up. But, how many has got access to Instagram and English? So I think, and I often think about it that even today, in spite of me writing so much about, on women empowerment, I've gone ahead and charted my own career when the whole world was shutting doors on me. I still dry my undergarments inside my bathroom. Because it is a mindset that has been passed on to me by my mother, by my grandmother, that chat pe, kapde mat sukhao, at least apna bra or, your knickers, you're not supposed to put it out. You just need to dry it inside the bathroom. So I think there is such a deep patriarchal mindset that I don't know if I will live that long, Ekta, to watch and enjoy the change that how women are going to take power onto themselves, into their own hands. So we are talking even today, there is breast ironing that happens. On my podcast, I've had a lawyer activist from South Africa who spoke about, young mothers and young girls are as old as 7 to 10. Iron bat is heated, and then they beat the breast and then they bandage the breast so that the girl doesn't get raped. And this is a mindset that is passed on because the grandmothers and the mothers believe that what they're trying to do is protect the girl from not getting raped. So this is so deep. This is so deeply entrenched, in us. And so, change, I don't know. I do believe that in the cities, young women are talking in English, but whether in a country like India, where we have so many languages, whether the same message is going out, I'm not too sure. As far as boys are concerned, I mean, I'm a mother of a son. He's definitely seen a vocal mother. But exactly how Meher said that I do speak to my son, we still need that approval. We're still not able to hold our own voices, because somewhere we are frightened about how is it that the world is going to perceive us. And this perception is such a stifling thing for all of us. So this whole perception that I carried, and I still carry in so many small ways in my interactions on an everyday basis. And I have to keep correcting myself because it's been a conditioning of years. So Ekta, I think we are far, far away, but we are taking baby steps. And I definitely know that, there are Ajis in Maharashtra today. Ajis are grandmothers in Maharashtra today who have gone ahead and they're joining schools to learn because they have, not been allowed to get education. I also just read about a lady in Kerala called Kutti Amma who's learned to study, and because she wanted to read the newspaper. So there are small pockets, there are small places, and change definitely is happening. I don't want to be a pessimist, but definitely, we're still far away.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm glad you brought up the subject of US, because that's actually going to take on for my next question for Meher. Meher, we're talking about how in the US, there's certain laws and certain practices that we consider well the US to be one of the progressive countries in the world. But one thing that they haven't beaten South Asia yet is that they've never had a woman leader. And in South Asia, Pakistan, we've had, India, we've had Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, they've all had women heads of state. We've had prime ministers and presidents here. But at the same time, if you look at the numbers, our parliaments actually have a very small representation of women politicians. It's only 19% in all of South Asia. So what do you think of this paradox that on one level, there are very few women joining politics, but on the other hand, we're one of the few regions in the world that have had women heads of state. Do you think that the current generation is aspiring more to a career in politics, or are the women still staying out for many reasons?
There's this one female politician from India, Mohua. I have never been able to say the same.
Mohua,
I'm a huge fan. I have been listening to her speeches, and she's so well prepared. And she, incidentally, what you just said, I would talk about her also in this context, because I'm one of those crazy people. If I like somebody, then I watch everything on them. If it's Deepika, I'll watch all her movies, and if it's Mohua, I'll watch all her speeches. And I found out that she left a very thriving career in the US and came back to Calcutta. I'm sorry, even though I love her, I've forgotten.
She's a representative.
And she gave everything up. She changed the way she dressed, and she learned politics. She went to the grassroots and she started working with people, and from there, she made her way to where she is today. I think that is how a real politician should be. Incidentally, in Pakistan, again, women politicians have always been there. Incidentally, in General Musharraf's time, who was a dictator, we had a lot of women representatives. But again, most women in Pakistan come on reserved seats. For instance, if you belong to PTI, Imran Khan's party, and you win a certain number of seats, then you will be allowed to have a certain number of members of National Assembly or members of Provincial Assembly. That is one thing. I think in Pakistan in 2018, there were about 8 or 9 women who contested on general election seats and won throughout Pakistan. I think two were from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is wonderful. Especially, I think there was one from Fatah, an area which is now part of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but was called federally administered tribal areas. It's like a very, very backward area in Pakistan as far as women's rights are concerned. So a woman won from there and from KP. But what you're saying is, it looks it looks great, sounds grand that Pakistan and India have had women prime ministers, and Bangladesh and yes, all
Sri
three
Lanka.
countries
Yeah,
have
Sri
had
Lanka.
women prime ministers. And it's fabulous. Benazir Bhutto at the age of 35 was the youngest prime minister, I think, ever at that time, male or female, of the world. And but now again, if you take away the name, Gandhi, or if you take away the name Bhutto, then I don't think it would have happened. I'm a huge Benazir Bhutto admirer. You know, we grew up listening to her father's speeches. My generation, we grew up listening to his speeches, and then we looked up to her. She was our political idol. Her personality, the way she spoke, her ideas, her charisma, that is indisputable. But the fact that and of course, her family went through a lot of hardships. Her father was hanged, and she and her mother went through a lot of hardships. Her journey is kind of different from, for instance, say, I'm not criticizing her, but, just to give an example, for instance, Maryam Nawaz Sharif. Their struggles are very different, but I would have to recognize the fact that in Pakistan, if I want to be in politics and my husband or my father or my brother are not part of politics, or an uncle who I'm very close to, I will not be able to make it into a parliament. It's a fact. Yes, I'm not saying the women who do not belong to very prominent families do not come into politics, but in Pakistan, the fact remains that the most prominent positions go to women who belong to political families, who have some famous, prominent politician in their families. You have to. I think one of the things is it's a very difficult profession, in the sense men and women in a Pakistani, in a Muslim, in a patriarchal, in a conservative society can't really interact with one another the way men and men can, or women and women can, for instance, in a certain space. It would be very difficult, for instance, for a woman leader to go wherever she wants to in her constituency. But okay, most female politicians right now do not have constituencies. They do not have a vote bank, as I said, because for a number of reasons. First, it was not really. It was men would go into politics and women wouldn't. They would support them from the background. But things are changing, but not really. But in our, as I said, in our culture, but in our society, culture also plays a huge part. But I'll give you one example. A relative of mine, a cousin of mine, she became a member of National Assembly because her father could not contest the election. He did not have a bachelor's degree, so he could not contest the elections. So she came in, she won the election on a general seat, and she even served as a minister in Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz government. So, and she ran on a general seat. She you cannot imagine. She belongs to a very conservative family. She still wears, because she still covers her head, even like in private gatherings, she covers her head. But she went across the different districts in her area. She spoke to men. She spoke in rallies. She spoke everywhere. So yes, things are changing. But as I said, things are, what you said, what we take as something, it's a great thing that we've had women leaders, even though. But now America has one vice president, first female vice president. But in Pakistan, I'll always take it with a pinch of salt that only women from certain backgrounds can make it to a certain position. Otherwise, I do think politics is still kind of, mainstream politics is a closed space for women, most women in Pakistan. That is a fact.
Yeah. Yeah, not just Pakistan. I mean, even if you look at Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh, she's from a political, her father was the first president of Bangladesh. Her Chandrika Kumaratunga in Sri Lanka, her parents, her family was from a political background. So you're right in that sense that unless women have that leg up to get into politics in the first place, it's really hard for someone completely from the outside.
You
to come
have
in and-
you have
Yeah.
those women. You have chief ministers.
Yeah, we
Uh,
do. Yeah.
I mean,
But for them to reach the level of prime minister is
absolutely.
still let's see how it goes. Maybe this next generation would have somebody to show for that. Thanks, Meher. I'll come to Urmi now. Urmi, we were talking about I think Rupab said about female saints and women who have been leaders from the religious sense. Let's look at the role of the female mystic in South Asian history. And despite all the social restrictions, we somehow, I don't know how, but we have these stories of women saints and gurus who defy all social convention, and still they have a cult following. People respect them. In India, especially, we have so many, these gurus who are women. They're called Ma or Mother or something, and people, they have a whole lot of followers. So, what makes these women so liberated? And or is it that they also have to face a social backlash when they first start out? I mean, they also have to make a lot of sacrifices. So, what do you have to say about this?
Okay, so female mystics are really like a special category of people when it comes to challenging stereotypes. So I'm glad we're talking about this. But the truth is that, like most heroes, women saints and mystics they're the outliers and the exceptions. Just like Meher was saying, you have to be of a certain type, whether it's your ancestry in terms of political power, or something probably inborn. So, but the truth also is that it is from these outliers and exceptions that we draw inspiration. We have to look toward them. We have to look to those who are breaking the norms to find the courage to do it. But to answer your question, the short answer is that yes, it was tough for them, and so even in the 21st century now, it's so tough to be a regular woman doing regular things. So you can imagine, these women who completely defied every possible norm. You can imagine what kind of social backlash they may have faced. So two female mystics come to mind. One is my favorite, Meera. Mirabai, she came from an extremely privileged family, a princess, married to a powerful person. But still, her struggles and her struggles are well documented in popular law. So her status as a married woman, seeking a God's love in what is called the Madhurya Bhav. The Madhurya Bhav is when a bhakt or a devotee feels romantically inclined towards her deity of choice. So that was scandalous enough, that one, you're a married woman. So what if you're relating to a god, but still that you're relating romantically to a god is the first scandal, is the first order of scandal. And then then she, of course, when she left the house, and then she, when you reject everything that domesticity demands from you, your role as a wife, your role as a daughter-in-law, she defied all of that. So, and again, there are records of assassination attempts. People tried to poison her, kill her, so on and so forth, discourage her in every possible way. So yes, Meera faced a lot of it. Then there's Laleshwari or Lal Ded, the female mystic from Kashmir. She's very popular. She's known in Kashmir, Shaivism and the Shaivism tradition for her poetry, which are called the Vaks. But another thing that is well known about her is her extreme asceticism. And in her asceticism, she even discarded clothes. So here is a rejection of, one of the primary traits women are conditioned to have, the shame associated with the body. So Laleshwari's discarding of clothes was really a discarding of everything, of the sexuality that is attached to a woman's body, whether she wants it you know. So yes, so these women had to sacrifice a lot of comfort, security, and Lal there also, when she walked the streets, you know, people threw stones at her and other such things. Similarly, there are lots of stories of saints from across all faiths, you know. So wherever there is defiance of what patriarchy has created for us, the borders that have been charted for us, there is a lot of backlash. But where does this courage come from? I suppose it comes from a divine call, you know, which is more powerful than all our fears combined. So fears are, you know, exist at the level of the psyche, the society. But in the study of mysticism, you know, we learn about a phenomenon that is common to all mystics across the world. So whichever religious tradition they come from, whatever time they were born in, there's a moment of unity with God. You know, in that moment, there is transcendence. So you've basically transcended even social conditioning, basically. So then you're not rich. So the ordinary fears that apply to you, me, Mohua, Meher, Rubab, and anyone else who's listening. So, you know, these mystics or saints have then gone beyond that. So, so there is equanimity. So how society treats you, you stop being, you know, you stop being fearful of that. Whether you get praise or you get criticism, it's basically the same thing. So, and what one is left with is pure consciousness. And yeah, and from equanimity comes courage, and that's something, you know, we all ought to practice and find our courage from our center, you know, and understand that it's all temporary and it all goes.
Actually, that's a very interesting discussion, which I think we should talk a little bit about more later on, maybe, about
Sure.
how, as women, because we're so much more connected to nature and we're so much more connected to the cycles of nature, perhaps, I don't know, I mean, this is something that I think about a lot, that perhaps connection with God probably also comes more naturally and more easier to us, the sense of surrender, the sense of transcending ourselves, you know. But anyway, let's talk about that in some other forum.
Yeah.
Since this is a literature festival, I'd actually like to ask Rubab. You know, we were talking about how Anonymous was mostly probably a woman, and you know, in our cultures, in our societies, women have not been able to be outspoken about their creative talents. You know, they've, because of fear of backlash. You know, if you are too outspoken, or if you write or you paint or you do anything that is considered against social norms, there will be a backlash. And we know about women bloggers, for instance, in Pakistan, who have been attacked, you know, even killed for being too outspoken on social media. So what do you think has been the outcome of this kind of suppression over the centuries? And we've really suppressed feminine creativity and talent. We've kept it under wraps. So what has been the outcome of this, and what is the current situation in Pakistan?
Well, overall, because, you know, I've been an earthling myself, traveling between the West and Pakistan. So if I'm honest, in the West, when it comes to the political process or inclusion, they'd normally go for the safe women. You know, so you have to toe to the line of how the mainstream thinks. So sometimes, I mean, you can be an activist by all means if you highlight important, but I think it would be very difficult for anyone to be a part of the political or be at an important role. So it's safe women in the West, and also. You know, since you've mentioned literature, it's interesting, like, for example, when Jane Austen was buried, hardly anyone knew that she'd been writing novels. There were very few people at her funeral. So they were really not meant to have a voice. And I think even if they would write something, the word anonymity, wherever it appeared, and some of the most famous quotes have come from anonymity. And most of the times that was a woman, because all you could hear, and like I said, that all, you know, there's been this illuminating panelist Maya, she's, who's, this, I'm sorry because I've just woken up. The panelist before me, the discussion was so illuminating about how women have broken barriers in the past. But all we hear when we reflect in our history is the clank of fetters, or the anonymity, or the women not having a voice. So the way I thought around it was collaborative work, giving voice to women, which is why I spoke about the Interfaith Conference and, giving voice to women.
Yeah.
So as Meher pointed out, in Pakistan, obviously it's going to remain a battle of mindsets, a battle of attitudes, and a battle of behavior patterns. What we need to be promoting at a very, because whenever any gender or any race or any community is dehumanized, then any oppression that you do on them, you're not going to feel any remorse for. So I think what we need to be promoting through early education or, is obviously gender equality in Pakistan. It's going to, and elsewhere also. I think there are some interesting works being done in 33 countries on promoting that mindset. Now, coming to Pakistan, as Meher also said, that it's not just it's about privilege, but it's also about, I think, more or less, it's the like I said, that the patriarchal, a woman can have a patriarchal mindset, and then a man can be a feminist also, right?
Yeah.
So I think it is important for the women to be at least on important positions, to come on merit for their capacity building, for their training. And I think that's a huge, even in, for example, even when there was this seminar recently held on hate speech against women politicians, there was meant to be a cross-party consensus on that, because everybody has been subjected to abuse. Whether it's Bhutto or Nawaz or Maryam Nawaz Sharif or anyone, but it was disappointing to see that even on an issue like this, women were not coming forward. They were not talking about it. So there was, as Meher mentioned, the struggle of Bhutto, Benazir Bhutto, was very different, because when she came into power, and because she had seen all the fatwas against her, where people said that their nikahs would break if they vote for her, and because she had faced so much, what she did was that she really empowered women. There was these women police stations, making women a part of the political process. So there were so many practical steps that were taken. So now I think that we are somewhat turning into intellectual pygmies, where even if we are seeing women, unfortunately, they are not promoting other women. So I think it is important, even if you, I'd go to the extent of saying that just we have a Chief Justice in KP now. Her name is Musarrat Halali. She was at the position of an ombudsperson, right? But then the issue comes when important posts and important government organizations, which are meant to promote women's rights, when there has to be lobbying for those, and when there are political parties pitching for their candidate. So they're obviously not going to be promoting women then. They're going to be promoting the political party, or they're going to be. So that is a very big issue, that at least on important positions, and there are a lot of laws, as somebody mentioned, both in India and Pakistan. There are very strong laws, but the only reason why they haven't been implemented or taken seriously is that when you don't appoint the right people at these positions, then what they end up becoming cosmetic organizations, right? So they are not taken seriously then. So I think we still have a wealth of women who are there, very talented women. And I personally think that up until the time that the key positions are free from the lobbying, and this applies even to the minorities, because when they're just selected on the reserved seats, then, even the women parliamentary seats, they were called the Zakati charity seats. So although they were there, so there was very little respect. So I think it is important to go through the mill to become, just the way Benazir Bhutto did. Even since it's a literary festival, there was the poetess Parveen Shakir. Now, when I see, even in the civil service, when I see my father's generation, there was Akbar S. Ahmed making the movie Jinnah, and there was Parveen Shakir, there was Ahmed Faraz, there was the painter Sadkin. Then there was Mehdi Hasan, the Ghazal king. I do not see those people around me in my generation. So somehow we are, instead of, and then of course we had Benazir Bhutto in my father's generation. And I think that instead of going forward, we are somewhat becoming intellectual pygmies. And it's not, I think, to do with the quantity, but it's to do with the quality of people coming forward, that the good work needs to be promoted. Somehow, I would also say that the extraordinary power of the ordinary woman ought to be celebrated. Now, there's a woman who's providing free ration every single day to around 500 people. You hardly would hear her. And, there are women working with the grassroots. I think it's the correct people who need to be promoted. And so, sorry if I've just drifted off the topic. But
actually,
I think
we're coming to the end now of the session, and we have to close. But thanks for adding these thoughts, and actually taking off from what you just said about representation of ordinary women, and also the generational shift. I'd like to call Mohua about this, because she's been writing about the choices of older women. Mohua, we're about to end, so please restrict your answer just like to a minute or so. This is like the last sign off. But do you think that women in our societies, when they get older, do you think they have it easier than the younger women who have so many restrictions? Or do they also have an equal number of restrictions?
Oh, they become very insecure, because a woman is not allowed to age. A woman is not allowed to not look that she can't reproduce children. If you're beyond your age of reproduction, you're basically just thrown on the side. So older women have a lot to deal with. My mother, who's just become a widow right now, she's not being able to get over the loss of, my father, her husband. So fortunately, I do see a generational shift, in the sense my grandmother gave up non-vegetarian food. She wore white forever in her mourning. My mother doesn't do any of those things. Fortunately, she is wearing all her old saris, but she's given up life, and I don't think I don't think women even today, we're all trying to look young, most of us, because we feel discarded if you don't look young. We're not relevant anymore. So it's not easy. It's not easy.
And Meher, what would you say? You've made a lot of difficult choices in your life, and do you think that the freedom or whatever benefit was worth the battle? And what would you advise other women?
Absolutely. As I said, we grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and I come from a proper conservative feudal background, and I just started reading at a very young age, and it's very interesting that literally books saved my life. I wrote about it a while ago. I wrote an article about it, that writing, I was reading I grew up with for 11 years, my sister and I lived with our paternal grandmother in a house in which my grandmother and my grandfather, or paternal grandfather, also had 2 wives. So we grew up in a house where there were 3 uncles and their children, and these 2 little kids, me and my sister. Our family was like all over the place because of my parents' separation when I was 5 years old. So I started reading, and that thing literally saved my life. And whatever I've done in my life is because of the books that I read when I was little. And but the fact that we are sitting here in April 2023 and talking about women's rights should tell us that not much has changed. We would not be having these discussions if things were the way they should have been. I had to fight. I had to fight every part of my life to be heard, I was always loud and argumentative, and but of course I was given a lot of hell for that, for being that way. But I think things changed for me with a huge. Some people would say that I paid a lot of price for getting where I was, but the fact that I've at some point, everybody around me, if it's my older brother, a very conservative older brother who did not like some of my choices, and now I know that he genuinely respects me. That means a lot to me. It goes for other, especially male members of my family. My father's in his 80s, or some uncles or cousins, male part of the family, or even females. They don't talk about me the way they used to talk about. But I think it's also about the fact that, okay, she's a middle-aged woman, she has a grown-up son, so now let's leave. But
eventually it has been worth it at the end.
No, but yes, it's just one last thing, that my motherhood has actually been good for me. They think that because I'm a good mother, now I'm a good woman. It's kind of sad. I love being a mother. I always wanted to be a mother. It's the greatest thing in the world for me. But just imagine that I have a lot of appreciation originated from the fact that I was a good mother.
Right.
So
in fact, that's a similar situation, I think, with Urmi as well. We need to quickly wrap up, which is why I'm coming quickly to Urmi.
It's all been worth it.
Yeah. Urmi has also made very unconventional choices. And I think Urmi's tattoos also say a lot about some of those choices. And very interesting for me. But Urmi, we are talking about these privileges for women in cities, whereas those in the rural areas will probably not have these kind of these choices at all. But do you think even in the cities, it takes some amount of courage and a certain amount of rebellious spirit? Like Meher is saying, she was a very bold and outspoken person. Do you think it still needs that kind of a personality, even for urban educated women, to really just do their thing and make fearless choices?
I would say yes, it requires a certain amount of foolhardiness also. I would say most of my choices were like that. Not that I, gave it thought long and hard about it. I didn't. I was rash and impulsive also in many cases, but and I also recognize my privilege, because I was cushioned by that I was able to get away with a lot of my unusual choices because I come from, I'm an upper caste Hindu woman, I'm educated, I'm in the cities. But yes, it does take a little courage. It's never easy to break out of the mold because, of the way people give you the side eye sometimes, or people may not include you in certain kind of forums. So the criticisms are not very direct, but when you know that it's there. So I have faced a bit of that, and so I would say yes, it's easier, but yes, it also takes some amount.
Yes, it does. Thanks a lot. And Rubab, one last, if you'd like to share just one more minute, last words on what more is required, what kind of change is required to ensure the human rights of women and minorities. What more do we need?
Sorry, Ekta, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So very quickly, whenever I did some good work on the KP site, I was called a man. So they would say, you're not a woman.
Yeah. He's as good as a man. Yeah.
To murder. So I took the grandmother topic. I would say, because there was a very immense when it comes to the infringement of women's rights, because most of the restrictions actually come because there are a lot of us who had those bandages put in. And I think, like I shared with you very quickly, I've had a patriarchal mother and I've had a feminist father. So I've had all those bandages, everything put on me, despite that my mother, and like but my father, he sold his house to educate me in the West. So when I was asked to walk with bent shoulders. They ask me to look straight up, walk with my head parallel to the ground, and all. That's the difference that it can make. And I think the way forward is collaborative efforts. The way forward is giving voice like you are. This cluster, this mosaic of beautiful, I apologize for using the word beautiful, for these intelligent, for the nations, collaborative events at grassroots levels, at government levels, at NGO levels, and this voice to be given to the women, which you are doing exactly today.
Thank you so much, Rubab. And I'm also going to now close the session with thanks to everybody, and also add back Sabine now to take it forward. She has a lot of sessions coming up ahead during the day. Thank you all. It's been fabulous discussion, and I'd love to carry on these conversations maybe on other platforms after this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
so much.
And by the way, the word beauty and beautiful, I don't think anybody minds, and I don't think men should mind either. I mean, beauty in
I
men
was
is
going to
as
add
much
that.
appreciated,
I was going to add that it's perfectly fine to be beautiful and to be intelligent and to be kind and to be inclusive. It's perfectly fine to be all these things.
Yes, so we can be on.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Lovely
Thanks.
meeting all of
Lovely
you.
meeting all of you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So much. Thank you, Ekta, for this amazing, amazing session. Wow, what a conversation. This was such an amazing panel. And over to our next session, which is a Readomania panel titled The Power of Womanhood. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk about the power of womanhood. So we have an amazing and eclectic bunch of writers and women authors, and it was with us. And before I go on to talk about them, I would just like to say that the previous session had this amazing energy in them, this amazing verve and zest for life, especially Urmi and Rubab and the others who, talked about the sheer power, the sheer grit that we all have. I think it's mesmerizing. It's amazing. And it tells me, it brings us together in ways unfathomable. So, before we embark on this session, I'd just like to give a brief introduction about who I am. I'm Ashisha Chakravarti. I'm 2 books old. My first one is called Misadventures of a Sales Girl, which is actually talking about this lone woman in the sales domain. And the second book about a young Naga freedom fighter. Today, I'm here at the Ananke Women Literature Festival with 2 amazing, dashing, great women, Miss Rachel Thomas and Dr. Harshali Singh. And I'll just like to tell you a little bit about the amazing people that they are. So the first skydiver in India is Miss Rachel Thomas. She created history by being the first Indian woman to have skydived from 7,000 feet on the North Pole to commemorate 150 years of Indian Railways. So we are so glad to have her. Her book, her autobiography on her is out, and we're going to talk more about her. Before that, let me introduce our next speaker, which is Dr. Harshali Singh. So we go back quite a long way. She's a member judge at the Consumer Forum, an author, poet, academician, occupational therapist, and a painter, and also a Write India winner. She has 3 novels to her credit as part of the Haveli series by Readomania. So welcome you all. Firstly, welcome. I'm so very glad to be doing this session with you.
Hello, Ashisha. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, Ananke and Sabine, for having me over again. It's always a pleasure to be here as part of this wonderful, community that has been created, where women are supporting women, and we're all going to reach to a good place, certainly, because we're all together. And hello to Rachel. It's always nice to talk to you and hear more from you both. Looking forward.
All right. So,
Good
before we, yes, please, ma'am.
morning. Nice to meet you, Ashisha. Nice to meet you, Dr. Harshali. It's so nice to be on this platform. I happened to be with the last speakers, and it was so wonderful to hear people from Pakistan, from London, from different places in the world, and how difficult their journey, and at the same time how they came out as conquerors.
I agree, absolutely. I just want to have a simple, free-flowing conversation around all the amazing things that you do, the lovely things that you write. And before we move to feminism and womanhood, because as women, we've all faced something or the other in our lives. And I was just talking about my first book, which is, as a sales manager, the kind of things I faced on a daily basis, which maybe a male sales manager would not have faced, the kind of the feeling of not being listened to, where the retailers would say that why should we listen to a woman, or your colleagues would not be able to understand what you're saying and why you're putting up opinions. So I think it is difficult for a woman to establish herself in a professional space and to prove, as someone also before said that you're a man, you work like a man, so that is supposed to be a compliment. To establish oneself in one's own right. So I want to know more about you and your journey as a woman in a professional space. So Rachel, ma'am, how has it been for you?
For me, I did something much more than the North Pole. Was something that I did way back in 1979. So in 1979, I was already married. I was a mother of 2 kids, beautiful 2 kids. One was, my son was about 4.5, 5, and my daughter was about 3. And it was at a party that I decided to go next day morning skydiving. So it was just, while it was in the army para dinner function, where we were standing in a group, and the lady and her husband who was running this course, Chantal and Captain Shamsher Singh, they just said, it's sad that no women have joined. So I asked, could I join? And they said, yeah, be there at 5:30 in the morning. So before I couldn't even think of the pros and the cons or anything. I was there at 5:30 in the morning. So there was no turning back from 1979. And I was hardly 24 at that time. So it was something really exciting. In 1974, 1979, to bring it to your attention, women had still not come into the forces. And it was way back in the 90s when women had joined our Indian Army. Even Bachendri had not climbed Everest. So I do not know. I just happened to be there way before time.
I think that's amazing. The kind of foresight you had, and the kind of the whole sheer grit that you showed, the determination that you showed. That's fantastic, and I would like to keep that spirit with me. If I would want to do something as amazing. You kind of inspired me to do something great. Harshali, you as wearing so many hats, as an occupational therapist, an author, a member judge, how did you find it?
So, Ashisha, what happens is, I think in my experience and whatever little journey I've kind of taken, I find that I'm a firm believer of destiny, and things will happen to you as they're destined to, and not a moment sooner. And I think my life has, taught me this particular aspect of the universe. And it has been a lot of meandering for me to reach where I am today, with a lot of ambling thrown in for good measure. And I graduated as a physio-occupational therapist. Then, I was practicing, but got married very early, had kids very early. And so there was this pressure of, obviously, the family became first, it becomes your priority. And you don't have that much time with, on your hands to actually look at your career at that point of time. We were in a unit family system at that point of time. And so I went into education. I thought because my mother was a teacher and a principal at, when I was young. So I thought, oh, she used to come back in the afternoon, I'll be able to manage both. But times had changed, right? And when you, especially if you're in the management aspect of education, you don't get the say to pack your bags at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock and come back home. So I was working till 6, etc. And so juggling so many things while finding ways to creatively project, all the things that were happening around me, finding ways to make sense of them in a way. Because there was a lot of change happening with my kids growing up, and my husband being so busy as a doctor, taking care of my parents. So there was a lot happening at that point of time. And then, of course, another professional shift happened, and I joined law, did my LLM while in service. And, so it has been, and so I think the only takeaway for me from my personal experience has been that if it is destined, it is going to happen, whatever you may do, whatever you may say. Because my parents used to tell me, why don't you do law? You have that bent. And I said, no, I'm never going to get into this profession, and look where I am today. And, they never let a chance go to say, see, we told you so. And certainly I like the space. I like that I'm able to add my voice and bring some kind of, energy that is feminine to essentially male bastion. And it still very much is that, though there is change, which is very, very, very slow, but there is change. And I think being a hopeful and a positive person, I like to see that, if I'm on this side, I have to be overly cautious. I have to be overly conscious of the fact that the girls who are coming new into the field are looking at me and looking at me to see how I'm behaving, how I'm reacting. So that kind of keeps me grounded, because as with children, you are their role models. You are the people that they're looking at, with who, and your behavior, your interactions, your engagement with them and with people all around you is what they are noticing and observing. And that is what they're going to recreate when they, have their own personal careers, etc. So, you have a hand in changing that modality that comes with sitting on a chair where you are responsible for other people, where you are able to make policy change, where you're able to find a path where you can kind of hold hands and pull people along. And that is the need of the hour, where we need more women in positions of power where they can support other women. It should not, and we all know of people who will sit on the chair and then close the door and say, okay, I'm here now, nobody else should enter, because that will take away from my, my power. So certainly, I think it has been a roller coaster ride, and I've enjoyed every single bit of it now in hindsight. Maybe not at that time when there was so much change happening, but certainly now, I think it was necessary that I went through this meandering path to be able to find a sort of a holistic experience of change, of how things are bound to change, whether you may like for them to do that or not. And I think because my professions, all of them, in fact, whether it was occupational therapy, whether it was education, or whether it is law, are very, they require a lot of engagement with other people. So they're very people specific. So you meet all kinds of people, all kinds of women, you meet all kinds of personalities, good, bad, ugly, you meet everybody. So it kind of gives you a very global view in the setup that you're in at that point of time, but also realize that you can put yourself in the other person's shoe and say that, okay, I was also at one point where they are today. So, so it kind of keeps you grounded. And I think it was meant to happen this way, and so it did.
I really like the whole destiny piece. I think it applies to both of you. The way you meandered through, occupational therapy and law, and then jumped into writing and painting, and the way Rachel managed to, do her skydiving and different things at a time when people had not even scaled Everest. So I think it all sort of the universe conspires, as they say, to make things happen. I sometimes feel similarly because, as you know, that I've also been in this different space as an engineer. When I started out, I did not know what to do. And I also faced this very weird sex ratio in the engineering field. I thought maybe it would change when you go into an MBA because it's kind of less technical and more people's specific. But I was wrong. When you go into sales and marketing, you see, and you're going to business, you're going to finance, I think it's the same case everywhere. I mean, data also says that less than 20% of women are actually on the board, and less than 10-15% of people are actually entrepreneurs. So at the end of the day, very few women are actually getting to do what they want to do. I would say that all three of us are probably, and most of us on the panel probably, are one of the top privileged people who are getting to do what they really want, who are finding their ways thanks to the people around us, the people supporting us. But not every such occasion, and not every such woman gets this. A lot of working women are actually working in unorganized sectors, and that's kind of pretty sad. So I do understand that. All of us, by the way, are writers who've written really strong women characters who are able to stand up and fight for themselves. And most of our stories are inspired by real life. I mean, I can say that for Rachel, ma'am. I can say that for myself, because I'm also talking from a sales manager's perspective who has actually gone out as a sales intern, faced, as you said, there's this male-centric bastion, and you give a little feminine feel to it. And it's difficult because you have no examples. And Rachel also did not have any example to look up to, that, okay, somebody has done this, let me also follow this path. There's no path set out. There are no paths ready for us to follow. So we are carving our own path as we go ahead. So, Rachel, how did,
Sorry, Ashisha, like the way Dr. Harshali said, she moved from being a physiotherapist and then occupational theory, and then, in the school, and she came to law, and then she wrote books. So it's so funny that even for me, going to college and all happened. For me, everything was the other way around, because I was married when I was hardly 18. I had my kids when I was, the first one when I was 18, the second when I was 20. So even my studies, I did it all later. And, I completed my studies then, and then I went and did B.Ed. But I realized teaching in a school was difficult. So because if you're in a sport, you need to keep fit, you need to go for training and things like that. And those days there was nothing available in our country for me to train, or a place to go and train. So I had to go abroad somewhere or something. So, so I look at all our journeys, whether it's yours, Ashisha, or Dr. Harshali's, or mine. We fought we fought the unseen battles. We never even knew what is there tomorrow, or what is in store for us, or what we're going to face. And yes, of course, I, like you, you being a judge, you found it difficult to be a lawyer. So for me also, I had got special permission to skydive with the Air Force, with our forces in the Air Force from the PM's office, as a very special permission, because there was nothing else in the country. And for them, they're called sky gods, the Air Force, instructors who are doing skydiving. They teach skydiving, they call sky gods. And here suddenly a civilian comes in, and over and above, a woman comes in. So in front of the men and other people, it becomes quite daunting for them. So, but they were very sweet. It was just for a day or so. But when they saw me, I was like one of them. It's only that I was a girl, and they were men. So they were officers or things like that. They accepted me as part of the family, and they accepted me. Though we did have our problems, I would not say it's going to be very smooth, In my book, I have shared how the rug was pulled under my feet and things like that, But that's part of the journey. Even in normal life, we go through fights. Even in normal life, we have a lot of, ups and downs that we have to go through. So, be it family, be it in your own, in your own family with your own siblings or your in-laws or anyone. We go through ups and downs. So that if you have it, when we face it outside, we should learn to face the challenge and face it boldly. And then we should not always keep crying that I'm a woman or I'm a girl and I have to get a special space or be given extra thing. You chose that journey and you wanted to be in sales or you wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a skydiver. So when we have decided to take it with a smile, you take it, it's okay. Let's find a way through it and find a way through it, and not just back off.
True.
That's an eye opener.
Thank you. I think being older than both of you.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes sense. I
Yeah.
was thinking of asking you this later, but since you are talking about it, you are someone who has actually proved that, women are physically strong, something that I've been dealing with for quite some time on a personal level. I backpacked through Europe about 4 or 5 years ago, and I really realized that I was not the hardy trekking kind probably. And then, I've started a bit of I also started getting into a little bit of fitness. I mean, I have more tips. I will probably, connect with you offline and ask you how to keep fit and keep strong. But you are someone who's actually been physically able and strong, something that we don't usually see women identifying with too much. Mental strength is one, which we always hear, right? But physical strength is something which women often are not readily identified with, unless they look that way. And I'm not even going there on the offensive side, but if someone would just look at you, they'd be like, probably wouldn't assume that, oh, she's a skydiver. But you actually made this feat happen. So how did you actually prove, or what motivated you or inspired you to take up such a daring venture? And how did people around you perceive you and your feat?
I think my whole thinking process was different and my whole outlook in life was different. So, of course, people would say, how could you go skydiving when you have 2 little babies? How did you do it? Yes, later now, when I'm 67 today, and I proudly say it. So I think, I sit back and I think, really, how did I go and do it? I never even thought twice. But then I always used to tell people then, that you're sitting under this fan, okay, or we are climbing down the steps. How do you have any guarantee that your feet will not catch the edge of the staircase and you slip and go and hit your head? You can become paralyzed in a second. While you cross the road, the lights are all, it's a pedestrian, you got the sign, but some rogue bike decides to just slip through and hits you. So there is no guarantee in life. And I honestly believe God, who created me, has written my story and he has created my timeline. The day I'm born and the day he calls me home. So when he has already decided my timeline, I am not going to worry, that, something's going to happen to me. I don't think. And I think I always fight with nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. You can do it. And where my fitness is concerned, I was always in the sports. I used to play hockey. I was on the field. I was a track person. And I'm short. So I couldn't think of, you can go that way. You will go this way. I'm not that tall. So I was always cautious that I do not want extra weight on. So everything together kept me fit for skydiving.
That is amazing. I mean, I would love to do something like that. And when Harshali, you said that you have combined, you have also moved from occupational therapy and painter and law and everything. You've combined the hard and soft aspects of being a woman. So we just talked about physical strength, but here you've combined both of them together. How do you think the balancing act works? Because in your life, in your head, it's difficult. I find it difficult, to be very honest. And I have had a couple of breakdowns before. I'm not even that old, to be very honest, to have a breakdown, but it's becoming difficult to handle both the things. For me, a 9 to 9 job and then writing and things and the recent family thing, it's kind of quite overwhelming. How do you balance the artistic self and the practical self? Do you have different compartments?
Certainly, I think as women, we really need it because there is this label that has been put on us, whether we like it or not, that we are multitaskers. And we have owned up to that very blatantly, which I feel is a disservice to women because sometimes you don't have the mental bandwidth or the strength to be able to multitask. But because this label is there, oh, you are very strong, women are this, that, every, and the other, we are, we are in this web of our own creation that we have either we have created for ourselves or people have created or the society has created for us. So when it to say person, see, I understand where you're coming from exactly because as a young woman who's seen so many changes in your life, I went through similar changes when I married so early. I was not ready. Nobody is really ready at the age of 21 to be married and have children at 22. And then, starting a whole career after that or changing it twice for that matter. So there were phases in life when I wondered what was in store with me, what was happening, why am I always against the current? Why can't I ever just flow with the current as so many other women and my friends were doing and happily doing so? Why did I get this need to, to do something more? Why is this need, why is this itch to do something more? And I realized that I think some people are just wired like that. There is no reason why, you want to do something more. And then later on, as I began writing, I realized that my writing was like a catharsis for me as well, because you meet so much, you meet and you observe and you absorb so much from the ether and so much from the people who you come in contact with, that you go away feeling sometimes exhausted and sometimes exhilarated, as we all do, right? And I think as women, we are slightly more sensitive than maybe the other gender, where we absorb a lot of energy from other people. So, and even the pressure cooker comes with the valve, right? So I think my writing is that valve for me, where I need to blow off steam. So I write from a very deep place of anger most of the times, where I want to talk about these underlying issues that are prevalent in our society, but nobody wants to talk about them. Nobody wants to see them. And thankfully, the other aspect of my profession, that is my law, when I write judgments there, I'm always writing based on facts. So it's a very fact-based writing where you're applying law and you are looking at a file or a story or the case that is in front of you and writing based on what you have before you or what you heard in the arguments. So it's a very symbiotic relationship wherein I'm creatively, when I'm writing very creatively, then I sometimes need to go back to kind of break away from this, this journey of imagination that I am taking. And similarly, when I'm, too deep into the fact-based writing, then sometimes I need that break away from there as well, because there's a lot of angst that comes to you on an everyday basis, 24, sometimes like 7 days a week, you are dealing with people who are unhappy, and that is why they're coming to you. The harassed, they're in a lot of mental pain when they're coming to you. So you are absorbing that on an everyday basis. And so if you don't compartmentalize, you are constantly in that whole muck. Right, you're constantly stewing in that, or you're literally in that that place of unhappiness all the time. So you do need to step away. And I think writing has given me that opportunity, because I was always writing, but I was always writing about things which I questioned, things which bothered me, things that I felt, why is it okay for another person to do this, but not okay for me to do it because I'm a woman. So there were so many questions. So I think my writing kind of stemmed from there initially, where I was questioning the gender roles that were defined, the kind of life that was set out for me, the kind of mold that was set out for me. And after that, it became about the stories that I was hearing and how people are unable to deal with them, and what would I do if I was in their place, etc. So I think the moot point or the main point in all of my writing or my life for that matter is that I question what is before me. And that you can call that cynicism, you can call that, call it anything you like, depending on how a person who's viewing my life views their life. So I think a lot of it comes from the fact that that I do want to write about life as it is happening in a very realistic way, but in a way that will give someone else hope. That if someone is reading that, I want to stop this whole thing of looking for a savior. I want everybody to save themselves, especially women, because everybody else is busy saving themselves. So let's save ourselves. It's like that, So I think it comes from that. And the practical and the artistic self, I think, are just facets of my personality, and they play off each other, and thankfully are playing off each other pretty okay, decently till now. So I'm quite fingers crossed for that. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll say one thing, and I loved it about a few years ago when I was doing engineering. I'd put it up as my Facebook DP thing, but I really enjoy this particular line. It says, sometimes it's the princess who kills the dragon and saves the prince. And I think it's kind of true, the new age Disney movies and the new age people, the Mulan and the other, movies that have come up, they talk about women actually going away from the idea of being saved, the idea of being the damsel in distress. And I think that's commendable, and I think I can see that spirit in both of you, and I love it, especially when Rachel said that if you've chosen this, you've chosen it, what comes along with it, so you got to go through it. And I think that's wonderful. And when I was in school, my principal used to say this, that I hate the fact that they have reserved seats for women. Why do you think that we are one of the elderly, or we fall among those disabled, or maybe some people who actually need help? We don't. Ideally, this should be norm, that all of us should be able to claim our seats or sit wherever we wish to, but sadly that's not the case today. So with that, I want to talk about the characters that we all concoct, right? So we all write powerful women. So Rachel ma'am, how do you think, I mean, of course, this is your own story, but how difficult was it, or how easy was it to put your actual experiences into, a readable format? And what did you feel? I mean, what are the feelings that you went through while writing the entire thing?
So before I get to that question, I would like to a thought came to me when you were speaking, Ashisha, is that, we all have dreams. You had a dream to stand in engineering. When you found it difficult to work as an engineer, you decided you do an MBA, and then you want to do something special. So you had a dream in your life, So when you had a dream, so even I had a dream. I wanted to fly. Okay. And those days I was in Calcutta, and in Calcutta, girls don't fly. They learn music, they learn dancing, they learn literature. It's totally a different world there. Okay. It's not like Bombay and Delhi. Okay. These two cities are different when you look at all the metropolitan cities up north. Okay. So, but when we have a dream, we fulfill it. Even how many boundaries we have, or how many problems we have, we try and get to that dream because we dreamed it and we want to fulfill it. So about my writing my book, basically when I was working in the railways, there was time when there was not much work, and I didn't much enjoy the job, but I had to do a job to get my livelihood, to get my bread and butter. So when I was, there was, if it was a quiet time, I had being a teacher, being just a normal person. So I just had a big exercise, one of those, like an A4 big exercise. So book, so I would take that exercise book out slowly and sit and write, my story. Kept writing from day one, how I started and things like that. So I felt I don't want to, I'm old school. I didn't want to do it on the computer because I knew the moment I do it on the computer, there'll be a spell mistake, a spell check will come up or something and it'll distract me. My whole focus, my thought process changes. At that time, I lose the plot. So I just wrote it in longhand and then it was lying somewhere. Then one fine day I pulled it out and then I got it, put it onto, soft copy on the computer. Then a friend of mine helped me through it. Unfortunately, around 2019, I thought of publishing it, but it was just after COVID. There was a lot of other things happening. And I think when it comes to autobiography, I think they cannot have a lot of autobiography books at the same time on the stands. So I was not, maybe they thought that this is a story that's coming up after 35 years. Will anyone read it? Will anyone be interested in it? So I just trust in God. I said, he has a time for me. He has something planned for me. And I feel my book came out in the right time when a lot of people have been going through a lot of lows and a lot of problems. And when they look at my life and read my story of all the other things I went through, it's not really skydiving. There's a lot of other things I went through and personally in my life and how I fought it, because a lot of women have gone through it in COVID. And so it's still yet, I think it's come to the stands, but not everywhere. So I still hope a lot of women will get strength from my book. So that's my dream. I didn't write this book for financial benefits. I poured it out to share with others that if you have a dream, you can achieve it. Nothing is impossible in this world when you decide something. You come up against a wall, but I'm sure you'll find a side way, a side gully or a little hole or something to manage to get out and to fulfill that dream of yours. But so long you don't distrust yourself or you don't give up hope that, no, I can't do it. You keep saying, no, I will do it. I will do it. I will manage it. It's okay if I have to face this. There will be another way out. So that's my life.
I'm gonna take this back. I think this is the line which will keep me through. At least today, it's the highlight of my day. I'm gonna keep it through that. Even if you are come up against a wall, there must be some way. There must be some chink in the wall or something. You may go up or you may go down it. You will find your way, and I think that is a very good message to be sending out to all our fellow women, and not just women, anyone basically who's come up against some problem with the other. And both of you talk so much about the right time and the right place. And this, I think it is about this new generation, which is always in a hurry, which thinks that, okay, today, I'm going to have this today. I want this today. Or as, people in corporate parlance use it. In my office, they use it, we want it yesterday. So we wanted it that day. You got to have it right now. So I think what we need is more patience. And what I see here is two women who have fought anger, angst, issues, problems, and a lot of anxiety and a lot of challenges, but with a certain veneer of calm, which I've not seen in a lot of other, a lot of people around me. So that shows that, they say good things happen when you're really determined to make them happen, and you got to remain calm and focused. So we do not have a lot of time on our hands right now. So I would like to ask you both for some last words. Maybe Harshali, you could give me some last message for the aspiring writers and readers.
The only thing I'll say is that to everybody who's listening or who listens later on, to remember the 3 C's. First, that you have to choose, as Rachel also said, that if you have chosen your destiny or you have chosen an idea, you have chosen to write something, whatever, choose it and love it. So love your choice because you have made a choice. And so it translates to you loving yourself. That's number 1. And the second would be curious, not confused. That's my second C, which I hold very dear. that, be always curious, question things that are being put in front of you, find out where they're coming from and what it means for you as a person to engage with them, to interact with them, to relate to them, how you relate to them, how people around you are relating to, whatever's being put in front of you. Don't be confused. If you are confused, that means the answer is no. So always be sure of that, at least, that if you're not able to make that choice due to whatever reason that you're yourself, the answer is already a no. Otherwise, because if you're very sure of your choice, the answer is immediately a yes. So that confusion itself is a very, very clear answer. And the third C for me, as always, is be creative, because it brings a kind of joy to your life which nothing else does. I think it is something that you own, that is completely yours, and something that you can own up to as you do other things. So continue to be creative in whatever aspect, whatever form that you like, whether it's singing, dancing, creative arts, art, poetry, just anything, in fact, gardening, cooking. I mean, there's so much we can do out there and show, kind of find ourselves, the unique voice that we have, and putting it out there for ourselves only. So I think self-love, creativity, curiosity, and choices. That would be my message to everybody who's listening. Thank you so much, Ashisha.
Thank
For
you.
me-
Take those 3 C's. And yes, Rachel, ma'am, what is your message for all of us? Final.
For me in life, in our journey of life, we have a mountain time and we have a valley time. So there's an up and down in our life. There's nothing, no one, if everything was so smooth, they wouldn't think of God, they wouldn't think of anything. I think it would be horrible to live a life which is without a valley time. So when you go through a valley time, always remember your dream. Because dreams are not something that you just only see in your sleep, or dreams are not something when you sit under a tree, but you have to fulfill it, and remember that nothing is impossible. You will be able to conquer it. You have to have self-confidence in yourself that God has made me special. He has got a plan for me. He has got something. If he's put me here, there's a reason that he's put me here. Even today, if I'm here with you beautiful women, I'm here because it was, there was some, I have to thank Dipankar for me being here, because he's the one who got me here, So I think that God is, God works behind the scenes. So I want to just say that. So never give up your dreams, never give up your hopes, never stop believing in yourself.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
I think the word for today is destiny, for us at least.
I think this session was all about destiny and how women have the power to shape their own destinies and to achieve what they wish to achieve. So nothing is impossible, guys. And those who are watching, if you have a dream, you better go and achieve it, because these are women who are achieving it day after day. So be all positive, all ready, get set, go. Thank you so much for this session. And thank you, Sebin, if I'm pronouncing your name right, for this great session. I had a ball. Thanks.
Before we end, I would say a dream that, imagine in 1979, I went and started. So it's something that, it's something you can't even imagine, that in 1979, I thought of it and it came true. So nothing is impossible. Thank you, Sebin. Thank you, Ashisha. Thank you, Dr. Harsali.
Thank you so much. Lovely talking to all of you. And thank you so much, Sabin. Again, am I pronouncing it correctly? But certainly thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harshali, Ashisha, and Rachel. I hope I'm pronouncing everyone's name correctly as well. But thank you. This was an absolutely delightful conversation. Always a pleasure to have Readomania authors with us. We cannot do, a Lit Fest without each and every one of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Bless you all.
Thank you so much.
So up next, we have an amazing panel, another Readomania panel called Navigating the Future. And Anupama, you're here, so over to you.
Sabin.
Hi,
Hello,
Anupama.
Sabin. Hi, everyone. Sabin, I must say, you're looking great, and so is the background. And I'm sure we have Monica here. I don't know if Smita is here too. Smita and Archana.
Yes,
I
they're both.
am here, Anupma.
Hi. So nice to be amongst friends, and so nice amongst to be all the eclectic writers who have such a diverse worldly view. So it is a very good afternoon to you all. This is Anupama Jain logging in from India. I have my co-panelists also logging in from India, Monica, Smita, and Archana from the distant Singapore. A very good afternoon to you all. It is my utter happiness to be chairing this fabulous panel as part of this very important festival by Ananke. Thank you, Ananke. Thank you, Readomania. The topic at hand is navigating the future. Now, whoever knows what the future entails for us, right? Especially when the world is changing as we speak at such a rapid pace. So how best to learn about what the future trends are than to talk to this bunch of wonderful writers who have written across spectrums. Hi, Archana. Hi, Smita. Hi, Monica. How are you three doing today?
Hello, Anupama.
Hi, Anupma. Good afternoon. I am good. Hope you are also doing great. Hi, Monica. Hi, Archana.
So
Hi,
thank you
hi,
for having
Smita.
me. Lovely to see all of you.
Hi, Monica.
Hi.
So my very first question, I think I'll go in the alphabetical order. Archana, Monica, and Smita, if that's okay with all of you. So Archana, hearty congratulations on your latest book. That's a beautiful book. And
Thank you so much.
so my very first question to you is, what do you think is the scope of feminist writing in the future, given that on one hand, we are becoming very much more socially aware, and on the other hand, the societies are getting increasingly nationalistic and restrictive?
So before I start, thank you so much for having me, Ananke, and Sabin, thank you for this opportunity. Anupama, coming back to your question. So this struggle, between social awareness and equality on one hand, and cultural and religious repression on the other, I think has always been a constant factor. And in my opinion, it's like a wave, it just goes up and down. So citing an example, your question was just made me remember one particular thing about which is right now in the news, which is the, US and its abortion laws. So if you see the history of this, till 1820, abortion was legal in the US. So your wave is up. Okay. Then between 1820 to 1973, it is illegal. It's been banned. Then 1973, once again, US Supreme Court upholds the, pregnant women's right to an abortion. We go up. And now in June 2022, the Supreme Court says hereafter the states will decide what they want to do. We are back down, and most of the states are now in the process of once again abolishing abortion and not giving a pregnant woman the right for it. So I think feminism itself has always been this one step in the front, two steps back. Each time we take a step in the front, again, there's going to be two more steps we jump back. And with this, I think feminist writing is something which is always going to be relevant. It's always important. And the scope for it is only been increasing because we have to once again reiterate to people, remind them from where we've come, and remind them where we need to go in the future.
How wonderfully said. Any quick thoughts on the same, Monica and Smita, before I move on to my next question?
So, Anupama, I would like to add to it. I absolutely, resonated with Archana when she spoke about the abortion wave and how it, we went one step forward and then two step backwards. That is the state of feminist writing. Throughout, we feminist writers have a long history of using literature as a tool for social change. So the power of literature to challenge and subvert dominant cultural narratives should not be underestimated. We had writers with like Virginia Woolf, who even in times when we were not there, explored themes like gender, role, sexuality, orientation through her work like A Room of One's Own and Mrs. Dalloway. In our country, we had this wonderful Bengali writer and activist, Maishra Devi, who through her work like Breast Stories, advocated for the rights of women and other marginalized communities like Dalits. So this power of the pen is only going to increase in the future. And by continuing to put, we as writers, by continuing to put the power of pen to good use, we will find new ways to shape the future rather than just react to it.
Wonderfully said. Wonderful. What about you, Monica?
Yes. So I think writing has always proven to be a very powerful medium in bringing about social change. And I think, in fact, it is in restrictive societies that literature actually flourishes. And I feel like it's proven its mettle time and again in promoting not only liberty and freedom, but also actually encouraging freedom of thought. So I feel like some of the sharpest minds in the world have used words to fight oppression, and feminist writing has also held its own in this area. So take, for instance, writings of Maya Angelou, or even like the book Educated by Tara Westover. It's very powerful writing. But also take, for instance, books by Marjan Satrapi or Kari by Amrita Patil. On the surface, they seem like very simple graphic novels, but they bring to notice challenges, either political, ideological, or personal. And some of the books use humor, and sometimes it's actually quite crude humor too, which to just tell us about the day-to-day lives of women. So prose, verse, you have illustrations, whatever the genre, they all drive home the need for feminist literature. You may not always agree with what the author says, but I feel a well-written book sort of inspires a debate or a conversation. I think good books tell a story about a different place and a different time and are interesting, but I feel great books just connect with us. And no matter how different the setting is, the readers are involved. The story becomes personal, and ideas born, or a set notion of belief is challenged. And I think great literature transcends geographies, countries, politics, and even time, right? And I feel like readers and women all across the world sort of draw personal connection to the plight of women in a particular area, and are sometimes that much more equipped to handle their own personal life, conflict in their own life. And so, yeah, I think our society is definitely becoming more socially aware. And I feel that empathy is contagious. So the more we write, the more people empathize, and the more people are, kind and sort of.
What you said, transcending time. So my latest book I had written, I had taken some stories from a very old classic, Katha Sarita Sagar. And the challenge was to make those stories relevant even today, because it is the social ethos, the social mores, everything was so different. So the challenge was to make those characters, the women characters, stand up for themselves, take ownership of their decisions, yet not veer off from the original story.
From the original story.
Yeah. So
that's great. Like maybe like the writings of Chitra Divakarun, where you're looking at an old story from a different angle, and that's neat sometimes.
It's from a modern lens. Traditional stories with a modern lens. Smita, since you write across mediums, you write blogs, you write short stories, you write books. So every 3 years, we see a tremendous change in the plethora of writing mediums. So what do you think are the skill set women should possess to navigate the future? so that they are not left behind, in the whole rat race where even chatbots are joining to make it worse for us.
Yes. I do think, Anupama, that women need to be as versatile and adaptive as writers as we are in person in order to navigate the future. In particular, I think we need to focus on three things. First, a learning mindset to embrace new technologies and mediums. We should be open to write and create content for different mediums, social media, blogs. There are now these Twitter stories, and we are going to those 6-word stories, from there to writing to blogs, and then using the video and audio medium to communicate story like podcasts and other interactive media. So we should adapt across these different mediums apart from books and novels that we are used to writing. Second, we should invest in continuous honing of the craft of communication and the art of storytelling. Writing is a muscle, and muscles develop and stay strong with practice. Self-practice does help, but at periodic intervals, some expert trainers' intervention is required so that we take that jump. Similarly, regular courses, mentorship, connecting with other writers is required to hone our craft and develop a unique voice and perspective that can help us stand out in an increasingly crowded and competitive marketplace. Last, but definitely not the least, it is important for women writers to build strong networks and communities, both online and offline, in order to stay connected with each other, learn a lot, and take advantages of the opportunity. See, the dynamic world has its challenges, but it also gives us opportunity. The fact today that Ananke has brought you, Archana, Monica, and me in the same platform, and we are sharing our views with each other and the audience, is one of the steps in that direction. So to sum up, I would say adaptability, a learning mindset, and networking are the three mantras for women writers to adopt in the future.
Wonderful. Before I ask Archana's views on the same, also as you quoted Virginia Woolf, maybe some money in the bank and a room to write. Also, that won't hurt much. What do you say, Archana?
So I agree with Smita, we should have this learning mindset, and we should be okay about embracing new technologies. So, whether it's creating a website, or even it's important to know simple video editing skills nowadays.
Yeah.
You should know how to set up your camera for a Zoom.
Absolutely. How much time did we spend before joining here to just make sure that our cameras is on the right angles and we are sitting on the right side of light?
Exactly. But at the same time, Anupama, one thing which I feel is that whether it's video or whether it's audio or whether it's a book, whatever it might be, though the medium changes, the base is storytelling. The power of storytelling is what is binding all these mediums together. So even though we've gone from writing journals and logs, to blogs and now vlogs, whatever it is, what binds a person to it has been the power of storytelling. So in my opinion, the medium, definitely it's a learning curve, but what we need to focus on is how well we are able to tell our stories. How well are we able to resonate with others in that? And if we can do that, I think we can, the medium is just another little more, another step to take.
What do you say, Monica?
Yeah, I think we're all speaking the same language here. I mean, storytelling remains the heart of what we're trying to do here. I think the core skill set of any writer will always remain the ability to just be able to connect with their reader. But there's another thing that I think should also be developed and cultivated, not just by writers, but by people generally on the whole, where I think reading is a skill that needs to sort of be honed as well. Because, and even for writers to remain relevant, I think we should also immerse ourselves in past and contemporary ideas as well. But yeah, I think adapting to new media will sort of allow us to tap into current psyche. I mean, where the readers are and what they're looking for right now. Technology is definitely something we should not be shying away from. And I think with each generation, we are getting more and more comfortable using newer technology. And honestly, we cannot deny the reach of the internet these days. So yeah, I mean, I think we should be brave enough to embrace different media. And for instance, some genres such as poetry could sort of lend themselves so beautifully to another medium, right? Such as spoken word performances or podcasts. And I think while it may seem a little overwhelming to people who are used to being behind the laptop, computer, typewriter, or the pen, I mean, who better than the poet to read their own poetry? So maybe it's time to sort of embrace different medium as well.
But it is a tough call to be, this person who's adapted everything, and then you have to be constantly on your toes to be even relevant, and that takes a real hard toll at times on writing. So Archana, on this note, I want you to please dwell more. To navigate the future, we should also not only observe the trends, but also become active participants in shaping the emerging tomorrow. I mean, how do we do that as involved and evolved writers?
So, the change is one of the most constant things, especially when it comes to society and trends. There's always going to be new challenges, new changes, which, keep taking place. I do agree we need to, upskill and fit in with the trends, know what's happening in the market and all. But sometimes I feel it's okay to do something different too. You don't need to always fall in with the trends. For instance, I had written my second book, which is Tales from the History of Mathematics. Anupama, you may be able to remember it.
It's a wow book, if I even can say that.
So
wow.
when I initially,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I must add a context to it. When I said wow, it won the Value of Words Award. So that is the wordplay I'm trying here.
Thank you for that, Anupama. But it was a challenge to write it initially, because in one way it's a historical fiction. But normally historical fiction would be something which involves kings or queens or war or some important historical period. Here I'm writing about the history of mathematics, a subject itself which is scary for most people. Second, I'm going to, when you talk about something like history of mathematics, there are these huge, 6-7 volume treatises which have been written on this topic. And here I want to write a very flippant book which has short stories of hardly 700, 800,000 words maximum. Yeah. So it was a little scary, and I didn't know how people are going to react to it. And it was very surprising when it became a hit. Yeah. And then later, there was a lot of demand for me to do more of it. So we never know. Sometimes probably we, following the trends just for the sake of following the trend, or just because something is not existent in the market, you don't need to say no to some idea which you have, even if it doesn't fit with what is popularly there there around. If something calls out to you strongly, just go ahead and do it. But at the same time, if there's some new trend which is interesting you, for example, Monica, you spoke about poetry, spoken word poetry, and poetry in podcasts. I had, I think about a year back, I made a video of one of my poems and I put it up on my YouTube channel. It was such a fun thing to do, and very challenging too, because the video didn't have anything about me. So it was all, it was a video on bees, which I had to edit and adapt to make it fit with my words. Fun project, interesting, challenging, but at the same time, it was a different way of presenting my poetry. So embracing the trends is also good. Sometimes we could be the trend setter too. that's even better, I guess. Anupama, what do you say?
Wonderful. I'll only say wonderful. What do you have to say this to Monica?
I think if I may, I'd like to draw on from the art world. So for instance, the trend, it's not trendy to do portraits anymore, right? And maybe people are looking for modern art or abstract art. But I'll tell you, a well done portrait will catch your eye, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be like Archana said. I agree with her. I mean, trends are great and you can catch on to them. You can ride the wave if you want, but you can also stay true to your craft and the message you are trying to say. So writing has to stay relevant. But over the ages, I think the heart of any story has been relationships. So while there are newer genres like young adult, or there are newer fiction types where suddenly there's a preference for vampire stories, at the end of the day, the story that is read and reread across genres and types is a story about somebody's conquest over some challenge, or about their love life, or about their relationships, right? We're still reading Tolkien's works today as we are reading great works written by newer authors on dragons and whatnot. So I think we must just stay true to the story we are trying to tell, and the idea that we're trying to build on. And I think the rest should follow, trend or no trend. So.
Wonderful. What do you add? What would you like to add to this, Mila?
So I agree with Archana and Monica. See, trends will always be there. 5 years ago, something else was the trend. 5 years later, something else will be the trend. But as writers, we should definitely be aware of it. We need to be aware of the emerging technologies, social and political issues, because that underlines the cultural shifts which we may need to incorporate in our work. But at the same time, as writers, Anupama, we all have our unique platforms. We have a unique platform from which we need to share ideas and perspectives with the world. If this idea and perspectives resonates with the rest of the world, we should go ahead and do it. If this idea and perspective is different from what the crowd is saying, we should not be afraid to speak out on issues. Otherwise, we are not being true to our pen. As writers, we are in a unique position to advocate for positive change, and we should not shy away from using our voice, whether it is in support of the trends, to add to the trends, or to question and challenge the trend.
Wonderful. As you said, sometimes even if you're the lone voice, but also a lone voice which is against the trend, sometimes invites unsolicited and unwanted rancor and some harsh words. At that time, if you're true to yourself, as you said, sport a thick skin and march on, because eventually you need to sleep right in the night, right? Mm-hmm. Monica, my next question to you. What do you think the future holds for feminist publications or blogging sites? Because, you keep hearing that core feminist publications are slowly shutting down because eventually it's all about money, right? And somehow, even though, so many advertising campaigns, they want to showcase that they are on the right side of the right thinking. Eventually, they're not going the whole way. So, they just skirt around, they just touch base, and then when the ruckus hits the roof, they are back, and the funding eventually is petering down. So do you agree with that, or do you see hope?
So you have touched upon the economics of the business point of view of feminist publications. I'd like to sort of talk about the need for feminist publications, where today feminist publications are the ones who are heralding, and they're advocating for gender equality. And today the need is it's very important. It's highly necessary to have such literature. But honestly, I do sort of hope that as society becomes more aware, maybe the nature of feminist publications may change, where we no longer need to fight for gender equality. I know it sounds like a very utopian future, but I do hope But
Right.
I feel that feminist publications, however, will remain vital and they will continue to play an integral role in society only because I feel women always bring a different perspective to any issue. So even if it's not gender equality and we're not fighting oppression against women, maybe it's just some other world issue where women have a different point of view. And I really hope that such publications stay in the future and they ensure that that point of view is read by millions. I always know that women do bring a little more sympathy and empathy into, world politics as well. So I think topics may change, but the need for the publication remains. And coming back to your economics, I really hope that the advertisers realize that too. So,
True,
I mean, we are half the population. So,
And I think for us to survive as a race, climate change is the next biggest burning topic. And that's where we as women, the half of the world, has to embrace and fight for it. Otherwise, the earth or the world as we know might be history, right? Archana, your thoughts?
I think one more threat for feminist publications, apart from the economics of it, has been that fundamentalism is right now on the rise in many countries around the world. And the voices of women, are being silenced, and at least they are making all the efforts possible to silence it, though they've not everywhere have they been as successful. Already the economics of something like a feminist publication is on a difficult path. Add to it political crisis and opposition and book banning and all these things. It makes it even more difficult for them to survive, frankly. It's a sad picture, but I think, again, the only way to fight it is by writing more, despite whatever may be the economics of it. And reading more too, encouraging these kind of publications, and buying the books, reading these authors, spreading the word. All this, I think, would really help for the future of feminist publications.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Write more, read more, support. Couldn't have put it better. Smita?
So the challenges always remain, Anupama, as you went to the economics of it. And Archana spoke about, the potential backlash that may come from whenever we put our voices out there. But at the same time, there is a need for such platforms and blogs. These digital platforms have democratized access of writers and readers to each other. And as long as writers continue to use them to create and distribute their own content and to build communities of like-minded readers and supporters, I would say that the future is optimistic. Of course, there will be that competition for eyeballs. There will be backlash from people who oppose the messages. There will be, it's a cluttered world. And that's not only in case of feminist blogs, that's the case for all businesses. It's always the survival of the fittest. You need to adapt and grow. Those platforms, those feminist blogs that stay relevant to the times, that engage with the readers, that build a community around them, there is always a place for them. And I hope they do survive, because they do have a crucial role in shaping public discourse around issues related to gender equality, orientation. And these platforms hold individuals and institutions accountable for their actions. So unless they are there, there is a large lacuna which will be difficult to get filled up. So there is a need, and because there's a need, I hope something will come up and the future goes more optimistic than we see it today.
Yes, optimism is the key, rather than be very darkly prophetic and about the doom that awaits us. On this small note, I wanted to add something. So before ChatGPT became such big theme, it was just because I have computer geeks in the house. So I managed to get access as a login long back. So just as an exercise, I had mentioned asking the bot to write some stories on the romantic genre, comedy, and murder mystery. Rest be assured, we are still going to thrive because it put up such terrible stories. The stories were so bad, even my students of grade 6 can do better. So in the future, as Monica has said, the heart of the crux of the matter is storytelling. The crux of the matter is empathy. The crux of the matter is making sure your voices are heard, right?
Correct.
So, Archana, I want to ask you about your latest book. I read it and it's a beautiful book. I read it at one go. So, how have you molded Arna? Arna is the protagonist of the latest book, to keeping up with the times, separating behavior and thinking from her mother. And if you were to pen a sequel, say 5 years down the line, how would Arna evolve?
So just to give a little bit of background for the others, so Arna is the protagonist of my novel Sleeping Dogs. It's a thriller, and it's a novel about Arna trying to find out the reason behind her mother's death, which happened about 12 years ago. So Arna is this, pretty and feisty, spicy 21-year-old girl who has dreams to become a fashion designer. And her father, a traditional Tamilian chartered accountant, does not consider fashion designing as a career choice. And so the background of this is that Arna's mother dies when she's about 8 years of age. So Arna, though she hasn't really, been much with her mother's name is Devika, though she hasn't really lived much with her mother, but still, they both are so similar in their thoughts, their desires, and their need to carve their own path, some choice for which they can, some purpose for which they can happily dedicate their lives to. That's what both of them want. But the difference here creeps in that Devika wants to do it with the blessing and support of her family, which never happens. So she's crushed and shackled, and she never gets to really do all she wants to. But on the other hand, Arna does not bother about anyone. So she does not care about what others think. She goes ahead and does it despite whatever her parents or her father's opposition or her family's objections are. And one important thing over here is that most of the time our families don't do this to us because they want to dominate us or something. Usually it's, they view women as the weaker sex. So they need to be saved. They need to be protected from what is again a mystery, but that's what other members do feel. So, they stop a woman from proceeding on her path or carving out her own career, which is something which I wanted to highlight through the book. And I also wanted to show the difference in how this changes over the decades. So there is this interesting scene where, Arna's mother, that is Devika, she speaks to her own mother, and she tells her that I'm feeling so stifled in this marriage. And she gives the example of her husband buying a house for her without taking her on house hunting, or, he doesn't ask her opinion on the house or anything. He just goes ahead and he buys a house for her. So when she tells this to her mother and she says, nothing, I've not had any opinion on this. So what her mother responds is that, how can you keep cribbing like this? Your husband bought a house for you. You should be happy about that, right? So, see, so-and-so, this person is getting, beaten up by her husband. Don't complain. Be happy about what you're having. So for Devika's mother, the fact that her son-in-law cared for the daughter itself is enough. She didn't expect him to treat her as an equal. For her, marriage is not an equal relationship. But Devika wanted more in her relationship. So when it comes to her daughter, I'm very sure if she had been alive, she would have fought for the freedom of choice for her daughter. You know? So somewhere when the stance that a mother takes in her rights or in her marriage plays a very important role in molding her children. I'm not even mentioning daughter, I'm mentioning children. Because seeing a powerful mother can shape a son too. It's not just a daughter. So 5 years down the line, Anupama, your question, in fact, makes me wonder where, Arna would be. So now she knew how to fight for her rights, win her family. So 5 years down the line, I didn't have an idea of writing a sequel, but if I do write one, I see her not fighting for her rights only in her family, but I also see her fighting for her rights in her fashion industry too. I think that's also a place where feminism has always played a very vital role. I see her using fashion as a tool to bring about social change. She will use clothes to make her statement in feminism.
Very nice.
And let's see, maybe you gave me an idea.
Very nice. As I say, raise your son right, because the daughters are already at fight. This has been one of the, strongest statements that I always put out there. You read my first book, Archana. My first book came about 5-6 odd years ago. The protagonist there also is from a South Indian background, like I am. It comes from a very strict background, and she goes to the world and she undergoes such a metamorphosis. But again, I felt at that time, what choices she made were again ahead of her times. But she fell a lot, but she learned to rise up, dusting herself. So eventually that is what the message is. I mean, have a mind of your own. You're going to fall multiple times, but that's okay. We have got the sisterhood. One such sisterhood is what we are already being part of, aren't we?
I love how, we all have probably a common theme which binds us.
Yes.
Though our genres are so different. So mine is a thriller and yours is a humor. But, I loved your book, Anupama. I must say that. It was a real enjoyable treat of a read. Thank you for writing it.
Thank you so much. The sequel is almost ready. So keeping my fingers crossed. So, Smita, what do you think are the future trends of companionship? Is your Sonia a woman of today or tomorrow?
That's an interesting question you asked me, Anupama. So just for giving a bit of context to others, my book, A Price to Love, revolves around Sonia, who is this ambitious career woman who seemingly has it all. A good educational degree, a great high-paying job, a loving husband by her side. And yet there is something that is missing and she is in the quest of it. And what is this? What is that thing that is missing in her life is what the book is really about under the garb of a contemporary modern take on relationships. And to your question about future trends of companionship, Anupama, technology and the evolving world has led to broader cultural shifts, and no aspect of our life has remained untouched from it. And the same goes for companionship. Some trends that are already there in our society in a subtle manner, I foresee that they would become even more prominent in future. The most prominent one being an increased focus on self-love.
Yeah.
As our understanding of mental health and wellness evolves with time, there is likely to be a growing emphasis on self-love and self-care as essential components of the relationships we have with those close to us, with even social relationships and casual relationships. In fact, I've alluded to this trend in the other way around in my book, A Price to Love, where I have shown the consequences of the absence of self-love in interpersonal relationship, despite, as I said, my protagonist Sonia seemingly have it all. So lack of self-love had consequences for her as well as people around her who actually love her. And yet it is this absence of self-love which led her to take certain actions which had its own consequences. The second thing that I see is the blurring of boundaries. Boundaries would blur between online and offline relationship and between traditional and non-traditional relationship structures. People will rely a lot less on FaceTime to form deep connections with others maybe they have never met in person. And online communities become a more important source of companionship and support. There may be more openness about open relationships. Irrespective of all of these, the trends can vary, but I see a growing recognition that different people have different needs and desires when it comes to companionship, and no one size fit all approach to relationships will work. It will vary from person to person. And the third thing that I see is increased emphasis on shared values and personal growth. I think there would be increased emphasis on finding companions who share similar values and beliefs. As individuals who are short on time, we will become more selective about who we choose to spend our time with and will prioritize relationships which are based on mutual respect, a shared sense of purpose, and where we feel challenged intellectually, emotionally, and creatively. Some of these trends, some of these things that I mentioned here, I have explored this, some in a more overt manner like self-love, some in a more covert manner like personal growth in my book. So to your other question, whether Sonia is a woman of today or tomorrow, I would like to say that she is a representation of both today and tomorrow. Such ambitious women have been present in society for a long, long time. However, it is only now that they have started to get chronicled in literature, films, and other media. As society continues to evolve and progress towards gender equality, we are likely to see more and more women like Sonia who will not compromise on their professional careers and break down conventional boundaries while delicately balancing personal relationships. It is because that Sonia is a product of our times that I would say that A Price to Love seems to have resonated with the readers, with its first print run sold out within 3 months of its publication. At the same time, is Sonia also a trailblazer, carving out a path for future generation for women to follow or not to follow? In that case, I will leave it to the readers to judge. But yeah, the signs are encouraging, and I'm happy that such a woman who is a product of our times and yet underrepresented, the story seems to have resonated.
Excellent, excellent. I think we are all, as writers who have gathered here, are definitely proponents of self-love, and that oozes out of our writing. We also have found partners who, share similar value system, and who create ecosystem for each of us to flourish. Eventually, that is the goal. Right? Monica, your core, I'm talking about your latest book. For that latest book, your core readers have been the youngsters. So how have you incorporated ethos in your writing to convey the changing trends, or to, gently nudge your readers towards the, for lack of better word, the right direction of thinking?
So just a little bit about my book. I've written and illustrated it myself. It's called In the Woof of Time, and it is an adventure book for middle graders, which is 8 to 12-year-olds, in which the detectives are basically a bunch of kids from a book club. I set out to write an out-and-out fun suspense books for children, in which it's a group of children who attempt to solve a mystery. the idea to base it on a book club was sort of inevitable because since 2020, when the pandemic struck, I was fortunate enough to host a book club for my son and his friends. And every month, a huge gang of kids would log into Zoom and we'd spend hours discussing the book of the month. And so this book was sort of almost a natural culmination of all those hours that I spent with those kids playing detective. In my mind, I was narrating my story to those children, to my book club, right? And I was writing with those children as the potential readers in my mind. And the book club allowed me to revisit not only all the foreign classics we grew up with, like your Blytons and Roald Dahls, but also introduced me to so many newer authors, both Indian and foreign. And I realized that the book I wanted to write stories that would include motifs that were familiar to my book club kids, where they were in their own urban setting in contemporary India, Asia, as we know it. And I hope to write in a way that was a whole lot more relatable to them with the issues they face and the friendships they have. So the setting is urban India. And I've tried to stay true to the era. And although certain readers across the world would be able to relate to the characters, they're regular school kids with regular restrictions also that they face at home, like curfews and chaperones. These detectives don't go gallivanting off by themselves in the middle of the night. They do use technology, but again, within the boundaries set by their parents in interest of their safety. So I've tried to keep it sort of appropriate for the age of the readers I'm writing for. And at the same time, the children are quite independent, and the way they solve the mystery should hopefully teach the readers how to use logic and critical thinking. But like I said, I mean, I've always felt like the core of every book or story is human relationships. And so I've tried to sort of also incorporate the responsibilities that friends have towards each other, or that children have towards the welfare of animals. And I've tried to do hopefully all this without being too didactic in the book. I didn't want to be too preachy. I wanted it to be fun. But I also realized that, I mean, there's so many ways you can tackle current issues without actually it being a book about issues, just by having the girls solve just as many clues as the boys, just that they're equal participants. The parents are playing an equal role. I mean, there's so many gender equality issues you can address as well, without that being the theme of the book. So, I mean, it's been fun writing what I felt was like an appropriate book for the children that age. But I wanted to keep it fun because I think while introducing new concepts, you can keep it fun. And then they also leave with some ideas that they can mull over once the book is done. So I hope I've managed to do that in the book.
As we have two things in common with your latest book, Monica. My latest book I had written for young adults. So I had done the illustrations for that as well. And a selection of that, curated collection of those stories was picked up by major schools in Gurgaon and Jaipur as the supplementary reading. So yeah, and what appealed to the teachers, as you have said, is the stories convey the meaning without being didactic or preachy, or without ramming the agenda down the throats. So I think that is one more common thing between us two. Sabine tells us that we have 4 minutes more to wrap up. So maybe I'll quickly push one question, and please give your views as quickly as possible. Okay. Do you think with passage of time, the etching and sketching of women will become sharper with more diverse dimensions? Will they move away from simpering and, waiting to be protected women to sharp and with multiple diverse personalities to her? Archana?
You mean the women in fiction, right?
Yes,
how women are portrayed in fiction.
Yeah, women penning the women in fiction.
Okay. I think women penning women in fiction has always been, very sharp, very edgy. And only only those that have been sharp and edgy have stood the test of time and been in our minds. I'm not sure if the others have stayed with us even, till now.
Yeah, the grey woman is very attractive somehow.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And the grey woman has always been there. The Tolstoy's Anna Karenina is the one who, jumps to my mind immediately. In such a traditional Russian society, aristocracy, to pen such a woman and to show, to make the reader feel for her is something amazing. And, not just Anna Karenina, any women character who is penned, unless she is out there doing things, maybe not always making the right choice, maybe she makes mistakes, she does fall, she does get up, but having her do something, that action and giving her that edge is only been what has endeared her to us as readers. And it's definitely, with every social change, the women whom we write about are also going to change. They are also going to question. They are also going to fight for things. And that's what makes them so interesting, I guess.
Excellent. Smita, I know your Sonia is already, as you very lucidly put, she's a woman of today and tomorrow. So maybe your next creation will we see an edgier and more with, oozing with self-love from every pore and, calling what is hers rightfully, forcefully in your next edition for Sonia, or will Sonia mellow down with the world?
Oh, I don't see her mellowing down. I don't know about the next edition, but I don't think in my future works I ever see a woman protagonist mellow down. And maybe for a certain period, yes, but definitely not throughout. I think as women, see, the portal needs to change because people resonate with characters that are realistic. And those mellowed down, simpering women, they may be there, but there are also women like us, right, who are not afraid of speaking our minds. As writers, we need to avoid stereotypes. Characters that are overly simplistic or one-dimensional may not stand the test of time. To remain relevant and better navigating the future, we need to write complex characters having flaws. All of us, are not pure black and white. All of us have some gray matter in us. And we need to aim to bring that nuances in our characters so that readers resonate with us and read our works.
Wonderful. So I may be wearing black and cream, tending towards white, but gray is what is most appealing. Monica?
Yeah, I don't somehow see women writers being able to write women protagonists that are not strong women. I think even if women were to portray a woman as weak or meek or not able to stand up for herself, the way they write it has the reader always questioning why isn't she doing it, so it's not just, you're not writing a two-dimensional character where sort of somebody's being walked over and you're taking it for granted. So I think the more women write and the more women we get to be readers, there are always going to be strong women characters around. So
Fantastic. It was, I hope whoever has joined us from various parts of the world have enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed chatting with these fabulous ladies who have penned such diverse works. Thank you, Sabine. Thank you, Ananke, for making this chat possible. Thank you, Readomania, for penning, for letting us pen our thoughts and making this chat very possible.
And thank you, Anupama, for being such a great moderator. Thank you, Sabine, for giving us all the opportunity to be here on the Ananke platform to share our views.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this great, vibrant talk. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sabine, I wish you the very best for the future events that will unfold through the evening, and we hope to see you tomorrow again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Looking forward to that session as well. Thank you, everyone. Up next, we have a keynote by Lamia Sami. Let me just make her the co-host.
Hi, Sabine, can you hear me?
Yes.
I still don't know how to turn on the camera, so
Okay, just there's a small video icon right
yeah,
at the
if I click onto that, it shows to pin or add to profile or rename.
okay. Let
One
me
second,
see.
sorry, I'll just go down. It's here. Can you see me?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's lovely. I'll upload
Wonderful.
my
Yeah.
Can you, Sabine, can you hear me properly? Because I'm hearing
Yes,
my
yes, I
headphones.
can.
This is pretty
Yeah.
quiet over here.
Yeah.
So
So welcome, Lamia, to our third edition of Women in Literature Festival. And I'd like to begin with introducing Lamia. Lamia Sami is a final year PhD student at the University of, and Lamia, please, if you can pronounce this.
it's Strathclyde.
All right, University of Strathclyde, where she is researching South Asian fiction through the lens of post-humanism, with a focus on exploring the multiple themes of post-humanism. Her work aims to provide valuable insight into the ways in which contemporary South Asian fiction engages with the challenges posed by the Anthropocene. In addition to her PhD studies, she's working as a graduate tutor at the University of Strathclyde. She is also an active participant in a range of platforms where she engages in discussions and ideation around post-human realities. With a passion for fiction and post-humanism, she aims to expand her knowledge and understanding of the complexities and challenges of the Anthropocene. Through her experience in research and teaching, Lamia's goal is to inspire others to critically engage with the challenges and opportunities of the post-human era. So Lamia, welcome. And we are absolutely thrilled for this keynote titled Reimagining Anthropocene. Over to you, Lamia.
Thank you very much, Sabine. I would first like to share the PDF that I have made very quickly, and I hope I'm able to upload it properly. Just let me know if you can see that. Sabine, is it visible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right. So, hello everyone. And as Sabine has mentioned, my name is Lamia, and I am technically a final year, not even a student. I'm in the writing process of my PhD, and I'm a researcher looking into Anglophone fiction through the lens of post-humanism. My research journey, sorry, yes?
Sorry about that. Can you click on the slideshow? Maybe then, yeah, no, it'll come to a presentation.
Slideshow as in
on the topmost navigation bar. The topmost. The
always Zooms are always like really.
It's absolutely fine. You know,
so this is in the oops.
No.
Slide.
Wait, I'll tell you. Go on the top navigation bar, the topmost, the second one. It's all right.
Actually, no, actually, the problem is, let me just stop sharing, and then let me look into it again.
Sure.
Actually, so copied extra slides. Sorry.
So the navigation bar which says file and blah, 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 then there's a title called slideshow.
I'll go back there again and share screen. This is my screen. And this bar comes again. 1 second.
Yeah, no.
Oh, right.
The second
now I found
one.
it. Yeah, I've clicked into it. So
from the beginning. Now go down on the left. On the left.
All right.
From the beginning.
See it? Now is it all right?
Click on the from beginning.
It is on the beginning.
No. On top there's yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
It's absolutely fine. Technology gets the best of us. So don't worry.
Absolutely. So I'm so sorry, everyone. Again, my name is Lamia and I'm a researcher. So I'll just start from where I left. So my research journey is more than just an academic endeavor for me. Inspires me to not just be a passive researcher, but also an activist in my own right, trying to bring awareness on what it means to be human in the present time and the issues of our time involving our planet and its many, many human and non-human inhabitants. How do I switch to the next slide? Sabine, I don't know how to switch to the next slide.
Just enter.
Oh, all right, all right. Okay. So now my topic of presentation is Anthropocene, I'll go back, sorry, reimagining Anthropocene, a post-human exploration of climate resilience, urbanism, and non-human and South Asian fiction. The topic of presentation, as you know, there are many wordy words, very academic and very difficult, but let me shed some light on these two terminologies, the post-humanism and anthropocentrism, or the Anthropocene. Oh, it's not going as a being, I'm just trying.
No, just click on the, just enter.
I did. Yeah, now it works, sorry. So what is Anthropocene? The Anthropocene is a period of time in which humans have become a dominant force in shaping the Earth environment, from the burning of fossil fuels to the alteration of the landscape. It is marked as a significant changes in the Earth's carbon cycle, as well as the extinction of species and the destruction of the ecosystems and the pollution of the oceans and the atmosphere. The Anthropocene is a result of industrial revolution and the massive increase in human population that followed it. It is estimated that the current rate of human-driven species extinction is 100 to 1,000 times higher than the natural rate. So the concept of Anthropocene is significant because it highlights the impact of humans that have on the Earth's ecosystem and the need for us to take actions and the responsibilities for our action. It also underscores the importance of sustainable practices and the need to work together as a global community to sort of address challenges of climate change and environmental degradation. So what is the connection of post-humanism with the concept or with the notion of Anthropocene, and what does it take to reimagine the Anthropocene? So post-humanism is my area of research where it is the body of work that I'm more inclined towards, and it is an umbrella term and has many branches. But what specifically I've been connecting to in this presentation, and of course with my research as well, is critical post-humanism. The critical post-humanism is a theoretical framework that challenges the traditional human-centered view of the world and explores the possibilities of a more inclusive and equitable future for all beings, both human and the non-human. It recognizes the interconnectedness of humans, animals, and plants in the environment, and emphasizes the need to move beyond the anthropocentrism and embrace a more holistic perspective that considers the interests of all entities, including the non-human. In connection to the non-human and environment, critical post-humanism highlights the way in which human activities and attitudes have led to environmental degradation, loss of biodiversity, and the exploitation of non-human beings. And it calls a shift for a more sustainable and ethical practice to prioritize well-being of all beings and the planet as a whole. This brings us to the point of the intersection of my research project, which is South Asian fiction. And I will show you some, sorry, being very cautious here.
Click on the screen, yeah.
Yeah. So as you can see, I've taken pictures of a lot of novels here, some of them being my primary text that I'm working with, and some of them being the secondary sources of my examination and investigation into South Asian fiction. South Asian Anglophone fiction has gained a strong presence in the contemporary literature, producing one of the most original and also marketable fiction being written today. It portrays a colorful, kaleidoscopic view presented by the insight of the writers and their imagination, reflecting realities and fantasies of our world today. The current site of Anglophone fiction locate and reflect new concerns and development within the region that is related to globalization, South Asian diaspora culture, presentation of political tensions in South Asia after 9/11, changing terrain of the subaltern narrative and linguistic development, and so on and so forth. And Anglophone novels and narrative, as you can see, a quote from Clark 2015, it says that it explores topical concerns of the 21st century and it also reflects on the anxieties and hope and development of our environment, wherein the novel, South Asian in this case, challenges the reader to readers with the Anthropocene disorder. So Anglophone, it becomes a perfect site, Anglophone fiction, South Asian Anglophone fiction becomes a perfect site for post-human concerns of the Anthropocene. I've mentioned these novels to you here. My novels that I'm personally working with are Lady of Alice Patti by Muhammad Hanif, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy, and Hungry Tide by Amatif Ghosh, all written after 2000, post 2004. And Rasina's Animal People and Exit West are also my secondary sources, and all these fiction, and including more fiction that is coming out, and I have gotten a chance to listen to the lots of writers and publishers prior to my keynote, and I could see that there are lots and lots of novels and stories that are coming out from South Asia that deeply deal with the concept and the crisis of the Anthropocene. So due to limitation of time, I will just be discussing only two novels with you. One is Our Lady of Alice Patti, and the other is Amatif Ghosh, Hungry Tide. So Our Lady of Alice Patti, Anthropocene through post-human lens in Our Lady of Alice Patti. So Lady of Alice Patti was written in 2012 by a famous Pakistani writer, Muhammad Hanif, and it is a story of a lower class, untouchable Christian woman known as Alice Patti, and who is an outspoken ex-convict working as a junior nurse at a hospital, Sacred Heart Hospital in Karachi, Pakistan. She falls in love with a guy, Teddy Budd, and who is also an off-the-book informer, police informer, and an alternative events followed by the stories of miracle performed by Alice. She dies an untimely death through acid attack. Following this, her father makes a claim for her canonization, which is ultimately rejected by the church. The novel is based in the megacity of Karachi, and the narrative draws significant attention to the urban spaces and its non-human others. The novel is a testimony of the city in crisis, which isn't just the crisis of the human, but also the crisis of the non-human animal and the environment. So examining the novel through the lens of critical posthumanism helps reader to expose the indelible effects of the Anthropocene ecology, and also helps understand the world from a decentered human point of view. The narrative reveals many instances and interactions between the human and the non-human in the novel that I propose through these narrative signposting about the non-human other. It opens up the crisis of the Anthropocene to the readers and to expound post-human concern. So I have some examples here on the slide from the novel, some text as iterations of post-human Anthropocene. And these images here will help you visualize the textual implication of these narrative or the signpostings. I'll read them one by them. The Hilux honks at a donkey cart with spinach piled up high, and the driver sleeps stretched out on the top. The donkey used the early morning's speedy traffic swerves and make way for the Hilux. In another instance, she looks over a cage full of chicken trying to climb over each other as one of them is caught and its throat gets slit. The cackle of the caged chicken and the soundtrack of the dead follows her for some distance. And you can also see the condition of the caged chicken on the right-hand side of the slide, and of course, piles of donkey cart on the right too. In another instance, Hanif writes, they look up simultaneously towards the top of the pole where a number of kite perched on the electric wires are waking up from their slumber and looking down at them suspiciously. The kite on the wire flap their wings and lift off. One of them shrieks as if to tell them to take their silly games somewhere else. And also, finding the street deserted, group of kites and crew descend from their perches and chase wild dog who lift their faces to the sky and bark joyously. So in these instances, the novel introduces diverse number of animals within the plot. These instances remind and emphasize the embeddedness of the non-human animals in populated urban spaces. As you can also see, kites, the avian fauna flying, the predatory birds flying in a city in the city of Karachi. Thus, these things help bring the reader's focus to animal welfare, ethics, and toward the fundamental reconceptualization of human-animal relationship. Every single non-human in the narrative, the caged bird, the donkey cart, the stray dogs, and the predatory avifauna, in this case, which you can see in the image, and the lack of nature, everything points to a sense of cataclysm, of an unseen disturbance. It highlights the crisis of habitat loss, the annihilation of nature, and the invasion of certain species, and so on. In this lies a post-human reading of the narrative underscores the crisis of the Anthropocene, helps shape our human-centered perspective, and to recognize the agencies of the non-human and the interdependence of human and the non-human in the environment. From the narrative signpost in South Asian fiction, and in this case, Hanif helps readers identify the plight of animals. The category of animals is a decisive other, which is traditionally excluded from the human sphere as well as the sphere of law and ethics. It is here that in the crisis of Anthropocene and posthumanism proposes biocentric ethics to include non-human other and dismantle violence. The category of non-human animal has frequently been used and abused to justify violence and subjugation, and as Carrie Wolf argues that violence against human others has often operated by means of double movement that animalizes them for the purpose of domination, subjugation, and even genocide, because we take for granted the prior assumption that violence against the animal is ethically permissible. It is this ethical permissibility of violence against non-human animal that Hanif brings to the forefront in the random instances of the novel and narrativized post-human concerns of the Anthropocene. I'll move to the next slide now, which is the other novel that I'd like to discuss. It is The Hungry Tide by Amateev Ghosh. The novel was written in 2004. It has become sort of a canonical text for emphasizing the environmental and ecological concerns within literary studies. The novel is set in the Sundarban cluster of island at the Bay of Bengal between India and Bangladesh. And the story vividly articulates the setting of the Sundarban mangroves as a protein tide country, home to not just the indigenous people, but also multiple non-human others, including endangered tigers, you can see the picture there, Iratue dolphin or scillas and other fish species, including fish and crabs, and so on and so forth. Similar to Alice Patti, the other novel that I discussed, this Hungry Tide also deals with environmental concerns. So the focus on the volatile land and its distinct ecosystem. The novel highlights issues such as environmental degradation, ecological vulnerability, and endangered species, and declining fish biodiversity and other ecological concerns affecting human and non-human lives. Hungry Tide draws meticulous attention to the island's unique environment and ecology through non-human animals and natural topography and other elements to create a distinct non-human narrative and create a story. By combining the post-human direction and the eco-critical route, the novel strongly recognizes other forms of subjectivities and ecological interconnectedness of biologically diverse subjects within nature. Based on this idea, the narrative expands the notion of the world to include entire ecosphere and open up readers for new critical explorations, ecological exploration, and engagements in knowledge. How does the novel do that? So similar to Alice Patti instances and iterations in Alice Patti, Ghosh creates a distinct narrative, unique and unlike any other. From the very start, Ghosh directs the narrative into a non-human world, making the readers more aware that they are in a world where human autonomy disbands. In this world, the non-human fashions everything. And the non-human is the water, the ebb, the mangrove, the river, the aquatic, and the terrestrial animal. Thus, the narrative suggests a strong sense of domineering non-human world where the human position becomes problematic and human loses autonomy as the non-human takes over. Instances like the currents are so powerful as to reshape the islands almost daily. And when tide creates new land overnight, mangroves began to gestate. And no moment can human beings have any doubt of the terrain's hostility to their presence. Every year, dozens of people perish in the embrace of dense foliage, killed by tigers, snakes, and crocodiles. So how and where does the human loses an autonomy in the plot? Based on these instances, very few of many instances, it is the tide. Firstly, it is the tide that dominates everything, and Ghosh affirms that the rising tides swallow up jungle as well as rivers and their opening. So the novel asserts that Sundarban is no ordinary place. It's different from the human cities and human exercise, autonomy, and free movement. In other words, it's the tide in this case that dictates the movement on human sociality, it designs human sociality and even their fate. Similar to the tide, the mangroves also play a significant role in the deciding the pivotal force of the island. Unlike the tides with a regular flow, the mangroves are deeply ingrained into the terrain of the island. However, they are integrally connected with the movement of the tide. When tide creates new land, the tide creates new land overnight, mangroves begin to gestate, meaning that the tide is entangled with the mangroves in creating the island's unique ecology. The non-human animals also have a ubiquitous presence in the novel and kind of bring a sense of awareness and mindfulness to the readers throughout the novel. The locals do not even utter the word tiger. For instance, Kanai Leaf Pia, two characters, they from the novel, and their final words are beware of the man-eater, which actually indicates to the tiger. So Ghosh employs a sense of awareness and a sense of cognizance of the place and alertness that is necessary to survive in the Sundarban Islands. So this brings us to the conclusion of this. So South Asian fiction vehemently narrativizes the concerns of the Anthropocene and help us reimagine the world through multiple ways. Contemporary fiction from South Asia not only explores regional stories, but it also addresses the wider issues of Anthropocene that have a global impact. This allows us for a more critical examination of posthumanism, which the opportunity to rethink the world in a way that is not centered on humans, or where humans are not the masters, but a world where they are participants, similar, just like the non-human other. It also helps explore the concept of bioegalitarianism and post-human ethics. The novel recognizes non-human world, which helps us create an ontological shift of perspective. The non-human narrative establishes non-human territory and destabilizes human primacy to bring the ontological shift. Where humans are no longer in the position of mastery. As the human is decentralized, the boundaries delineating human and the non-human dissolve. In another word, there is no more position of primacy and hegemony. Thus, it helps us treat differences in new way and reposition the role of human in a more than human world. Furthermore, from the non-human position also gives a richer vision or the richer understanding of the non-human other. In this way, it proposes what's called trans-species egalitarianism, as I mentioned earlier, bioegalitarianism. And it also helps analyze power relations and social forms and exclusion and domination perpetuated by biopriacy, as Shiva says, and commodification of life, as Pradoti says, and systematic dispossession, as Sasan says. Such critique also encourages awareness toward non-human animals and environment and emphasizes interconnectedness, mutualities, new connections, and mergers between species, bodies, and actions, wherein these connections are not just transcendence, but actual embodiment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lamia, for this enlightening. This has been a learning experience for me. So thank you so much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
So any last words, Lamia?
Last words. This is a process of blood, sweat, and tear for the past 3 years that I've been working. Not exactly past 4 years. So I would encourage people for this keynote to look into things look into things by not from their point of view. It is time to change our gaze. It is time to look at the world from the other's gaze. And other has so many different connotations. It not necessarily has to be the human, it could be the non-human. It could also very well be the other marginalized being. It could also be the women of society. It could also be the racially marginalized being from the society. And as we expand our gazes to the other side, it also includes non-humans and then, of course, the environment. And it also brings our attention to the multiple crises that we are facing in the times of Anthropocene. I hope that I try to make it as easy as I can, because I know there are a lot of academic words in it, which even I confuse myself sometimes, constantly trying to navigate through my own research. But the idea is about looking into the world from the other's gaze and looking into issues and not thinking ourselves as the masters of the world, but also actually destabilizing the notion of mastery and feeling one with everything else.
Thank you so much, Lamia.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Up next, we have an amazing workshop facilitated by Kirti Jayakumar. So stay tuned. We will be right back.